Hello, everybody, and welcome to Pairodice Games Monday Night Modern. I am Alex. Joining me in the booth here is Brad.
Hello.
And we're going to kick things off with a little bit of green-white, probably Devoted Druid Vizier combo versus Nick on Burn. So, quick first impressions of this matchup. Usually Burn pretty far ahead in the pre-board games. Giver of Runes definitely has something to say about that and is one of your better cards in the matchup. And also, there's something to be said for potentially Sam just being on the play and killing you on like turn 3 or whatever that the deck tends to do. But Burn, like we see here with the Searing Blaze, has plenty of answers to that. And especially with Sam missing his second land drop, it's going to be trouble in just drawing Once Upon a Times here. Definitely not helping. I assume we'll see one just fired off on main phase. Indeed, we will. Going to try and find a land for Sam here. It will.
Yeah, that's what you'll find in this matchup, is a lot of times game one, the green-white value deck is forced into being a combo deck, and the Burn deck is not going to allow that. They've got something like 16 removal spells main board, maybe more than that.
It's somewhere around there. It's actually less than you'd think, because the decks, a lot of the Burn spells actually can't get pointed at creatures, but enough of them can.
And you don't always see Searing Blaze main board, and Nick clearly has Searing Blaze main board.
Yeah, it's usually 4 of main board nowadays. I have seen lists cut it for some other fun stuff. I often see cards like Rending Shard, the 1-mana sack a mountain lightning bolt, Shard Volley, cards like that in its place if you end up doing that. But usually it's just 4 Searing Blazes or whatever. And we'll see Nick get extra Searing Bloods and Path to Exiles very likely in the sideboard here. So regardless, I think we're probably pretty done here. I mean, Sam drew Dryad Arbor off the top of his deck. That's not a particularly normal include in these green-white company decks. What do you think about that one?
I love Dryad Arbor. I play that every time I get the chance. A lot of times it's there so that you can crack a fetch and protect something from a Liliana.
Oh, here's a cute way we're seeing Dryad Arbor. Go ahead and Eldritch Evolution it away. Let's see what Sam finds. Devoted Druid, unsurprisingly, and Lightning Bolt right on time for Nick.
Yeah, it seems very unlikely that Sam gets any more turns this game.
Yeah.
But if he were, this is how you're 1 card away from winning the game.
Yeah, Lava Spike, Lightning Bolt will seal the deal here for Nick. And with that, let's take a look at these players' sideboards after a real quick first game. For Nick's side, he has 3 Core Firewalker, 3 Path to Exile, 1 Searing Blood, 4 Skullcrack, and 4 Smash to Smithereens. What do you like here?
The Searing Blood, clearly, that's going to kill almost everything in Sam's deck.
Yep.
The Path to Exiles are dubious. I think you might bring in one if you really want to prevent your opponent from comboing off. Then you'd have to bring in them all, but I think Nick has plenty of options in the main board, and I think the combo is going to be less of a threat in Game 2 and Game 3. An interesting inclusion would be Skullcrack. Hey, Hierarch, thanks for watching. Skullcrack would prevent Sam from gaining life, but the other thing it does is prevents damage from being prevented. And we see the Core Firewalkers in Sam's sideboard, which we're going to talk about shortly. Skullcrack allows those to actually die in combat, which was one of Nick's outs to get past that.
Definitely matters. So you already mentioned it a little bit, but let's take a look at Sam's sideboard here. We have 1 Collector Roof, 1 Phyrexian Revoker, 1 Devout Lightcaster, 4 Veil of Summer, 3 Path to Exile, 3 Core Firewalker, 1 Burnt and Forge Tender, and 1 Knight of Autumn. So we've got a few hits here. The Core Firewalkers, obviously excellent. Burnt and Forge Tender along the same vein there. And the Knight of Autumn. Those are all cards that are going to gain you life. If you feel like you need some extra removal to deal with the 1-mana creatures out of Burn, you can bring in some Path to Exiles. I don't hate that. And obviously Veil of Summer not here. Collector Roof no. Devout Lightcaster, that one's interesting. I could see that card coming.
It is a 3/3. Does it hit red or black permanents? I thought it only hit black permanents.
Oh, you might be right. I think you might be right. I think I might be confusing it with Devout Decree. But
yes.
Devout Decree is red or black, and I tended to think it was a callback to Devout Lightcaster, so I sort of assumed that it was red and black, but I might just be wrong.
Yeah, I think the Zendikar core had the one dedicated red hate card and the one dedicated black hate card.
I think you're right, actually. So yeah, probably not here. And we'll have to see what players decided. It looks like they've decided what their sideboard options will be, and looks like we're shuffling up for game number 2 here. Looks like probably a little bit of light sideboarding from Nick and a little bit more heavy on Sam's side, probably.
I will say I'm surprised not to see any kitchen finks in Sam's sideboard. He does look like he's more into finding the value, or sorry, the silver bullet game 2 and game 3, but still leaning into the combo.
Yeah, hello, Selden Arkai. So notably, one card that we did not see in Sam's sideboard was Shalai, Voice of Plenty. Shalai, Voice of Plenty is definitely a card that these green-white decks have access to and oftentimes will bring in, and that's definitely one of the reasons why I would expect to see a Path of to Exile or 2 out of Nick's deck, because that's one of the cards that you do need to be scared of your opponent, just like, Green Sun, Zenithing, Light, or Finale of Devastationing for in this matchup, that oftentimes you're just, like, cold to.
And I do believe that Sam mainboards Shalai.
Oh, he just mainboards it?
I believe so.
Yeah.
It is, when you have your infinite mana, it is a win condition, because it makes you guys arbitrarily large.
Yep, absolutely. I have seen decks main deck them. I think it was like my instinct was that it was kind of like a flash in the pan win con type thing, where it was people thought it was cute and good and played it for like a week or two, especially when Burn was more popular, but it could easily still be in Sam's deck, and it is still a good win condition. I would also like to mention, as we see players taking a look at their opening hands there, that Selden Arkai just subscribed with Twitch Prime. Thank you very much. Twitch Prime subscriptions are free if you have Amazon Prime. You can link your account. You get a free Twitch Prime subscription once a month, every month. And if you would like to support our stream, subscribing with Twitch Prime is probably the best way to do so as far as ease of access is concerned.
And we know it's a burden, but you cannot auto-renew your Twitch Prime membership.
Indeed.
Your subscription. So if you are subscribing with that is something you should put on your calendar to do regularly.
Absolutely. We appreciate it a bunch. And regardless, let's take a look at this 6-card hand here for Sam. Looks like Nick will be happy to keep his 7. I see Once Upon a Time.
There's a
lot
Core
of
Firewalker in that
lands.
hand.
Yeah, but Core Firewalker makes me believe that we're probably going to be keeping it.
Yeah, Game 2 and Game 3, this matchup is a lot about Core Firewalker. You've got the Burnt-In Forge Tender to protect your
combo.
I was going to say your Giver of Runes, because she can protect the rest of your combo if she
Also
can stay
true,
alive. Yeah. But Core Firewalker by itself forces Nick to have an answer, because every burn spell deals 1 less damage.
It will win you the game by itself in this matchup, and is another reason why we will probably see Nick bring in the full 3 Path to Exile. Oh, and there's that Shalai, Voice of Plenty that I mentioned. Nick's going to give that one a read. That's a pretty important one for Nick to keep in mind for later in the game. Of course, Sam gaining Hexproof means that those burn spells now deal less than 1 damage. Noble Hierarch back over to Nick. Searing Blaze off the top. He'll lead things off with a Wooded Foothills. Is that triple Sunbaked Canyon? Are the rest of his lands in hand? It looks like that to me, so I'd be surprised if we saw Sacred Foundry here, but it looks like he will just go for the Sacred Foundry. Not worried about his life total, is Nick. That's a reasonable stance to have in this matchup, but with triple Sunbaked Canyon, I'm worried that eventually I won't be able to cast my spells.
That's true. You do get draw steps, and you do have a bunch of lands in your deck, and only one of them remaining is a Sunbaked Canyon. And especially when you start filtering your Sunbaked Canyons away, because you have your 4th land, you will find mountains at some point in this game.
It is true. All right, so here is that Core Firewalker, and also notably, Core Firewalker, you can't block it. So, Nick's life total even more so under pressure early on here. But there's that Path to Exile we'd been talking about. Here's an attack for 4 from Nick. And assuming that Sam has another land, which I believe he does, and honestly, even if he doesn't, we're just going to see this Shalai get slammed down on the next turn.
Yeah, turn 3 Shalai is pretty decent, especially when you already forced your opponent to use their sideboard Path to Exile on another threat.
It's going to be pretty good.
I use the word threat loosely there.
I would call Core Firewalker a threat against Burn.
It will win the game, but not by killing them.
That's pretty fair. So, let's see. Sam going to do anything cute here other than just the standard old Shalai? Well, looks like he's going to lead things off with Devoted Druid as opposed to casting the Shalai this turn. What do you think of that?
It doesn't look to me like he has another way to spend the mana.
I don't think so.
Which makes me really not love it. If he rips exactly Vizier, he can win the game next turn where he wouldn't otherwise be able to.
Yeah.
But instead, what we get is that Druid exposed to the Searing Blaze, where Shalai would not quite have been.
Yeah, and now we see Searing Blaze plus Skewer the Critics. That's 6 damage to Sam, plus an attack for 6 here. Means that Sam's probably just going to have to block with his Noble Hierarch here.
Curiously, we saw the Searing Blaze turn on the Spectacle for Skewer the Critics. And it seems intuitively like we would have just been able to use that damage to kill Shalai. But you can't cast Searing Blaze when there's a Shalai on the battlefield.
Pretty awkward, yeah.
Which means you can't get the Spectacle for the Skewer.
Yeah, so Lick kind of just jamming out his creatures here, kind of begging Sam to just cast his Shalai, and Sam continues to think about doing something else. I wonder what he's thinking about here.
There must be a spell in his hand that we haven't determined or noticed.
I believe he drew Eladamri's Call for the turn, and I believe the other card in his hand is Postmortem Lunge.
Okay, the Postmortem Lunge makes the Devoted Druid make some more sense, because if we drew a Vizier there, even with the Druid dying, we'd be able to win the game here.
Yeah, so it looks like Sam's doing the math right now on whether or not he can actually kill his opponent. Does he have enough mana? Let's see. We Postmortem Lunge for 2 mana to get back our Devoted Druid. 2 mana and 2 life. And then the Devoted Druid will make 2 mana, and then we can Eladamri's Call. Well, I guess the Devoted Druid will... we'll make 2 mana. But it looks like that might not be enough. I think he's exactly 1 mana short because he doesn't have the white mana to cast Shalai. But then he just picked up his cards. I mean, he could have just deployed a Shalai there, I think.
Or you could Eladamri's Call for a Core Firewalker and slam it and see if it'll win you the game.
Yeah, I'm not super in love with the concession there. I mean, I think that if you just deployed a Shalai, like, you just have a reasonable chance of winning,
right? Are we rebuilding board, or are we going back and looking at what we could have done?
I think we're just going back and looking. I mean, Nick's already picked up all of his cards here. But Eladamri's Call plus Shalai, like, you are limited on white mana, so you can't actually kill your opponent this turn, notably.
I don't think we are limited on white mana, because Shalai only takes the 1 to cast, and Eladamri's Call only takes the 1 to cast.
But
so
we do need to tap
2.
But we do need to tap 2 of our lands for the Devoted Druid, plus a white mana for the Call, plus a white mana for the Vizier. And we only have the 4 lands. So we will not have the white mana to cast Shalai.
Okay.
We'll only have green. But even then, I mean, I think if he just cast Shalai that turn, he was probably in a pretty good spot, right? I mean...
No.
no.
If Nick has a burn spell, then he...
Yeah, we're not feeling great.
Turns his guy sideways, does Sam block, clearly, but then you're going to lose your Shalai. But maybe in that world you get to untap, but then you untap and you draw a land and you combo off and you don't have your win condition.
Yeah, I mean, we're not in a great spot, I don't think. And you also mentioned Eladamri's Call for Core Firewalker.
I actually think that's our best bet.
Which seems pretty reasonable to me as well. But it looks like that will clean things up in a quick 2-0 match there for Nick. Congratulations to him. Well done.
I think that was fast enough that we'll be able to find someone else to play their game 3 on this camera. Still in round 1.
Yeah. So with that, I think we will probably cut to a very short commercial and try and find a nice game for you. But first, I would like to thank Advancify. Advancify is the best in the business for IT web design and data recovery. Advancify, thank you so much for supporting the stream. If you are looking for anything tech related in the Bellingham area, head to advancify.me and let them know that we sent you. Advancify helps us help them. We all grow together. And with that, we'll be right back
I actually want to add something,
yes,
because we
please.
always say anything tech related, and it's real easy to be a private person and think, I don't need anything tech related. But if you break the screen on your computer or a laptop, if your fan goes out, if you've got a corrupted hard drive and you're looking to move on to something else, to another machine, and you want to take the information with you, that's what these guys do. So it's not only businesses looking to make their Shopify store, which is the example I always use because that's the one that applies to me. But these guys really, if you have a problem with your computer, give them a call, send them an email, let them know, and if they can't help you, they will put you in contact with someone who can.
Yeah, they're very helpful, very friendly, always going to help you out. So once again, thank you to Advancify. We will be back hopefully within 2 minutes or something like that with another match. So make sure not to go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Here's Hot Damn Scandal.
Okay, cool. Alrighty, as promised, we're back here with game number 2. We've got Jund versus Blue Moon. If I had to have picked a match to go to game number 2 in the time that our last match ended, I would have picked Jund versus Blue Moon, I think.
I will say, Nathan has 3-0'd several events here in the last month, and he wins his matches quite quickly.
He does, actually.
He plays Thing in the Ice. I haven't seen Aria of Flame. I'm actually struggling to remember any of his other win conditions.
It's mostly Thing in the Ice.
Yeah, Thing in the Ice ends games real
Thing in the
fast.
Ice and Snapcaster Bolt tend to be his plans. He definitely has a nice post-board Young Pyromancer plan that he's a fan of. So we'll see if he ended up transitioning to that, which he often does in a post-board game. Looks like we're seeing Tarmogoyf from Greg and then Spell Snare, I'm assuming, from Nathan. And that will be putting Greg down a life from his Nurturing Peatland. So Nathan will go ahead and take a draw. Nathan, I believe, should be at 19, if I'm correct, from a fetch land, fetching an island.
And Greg's likely at 18, because it looks like there's a fetch land in his graveyard as well.
Yep, and Greg is likely at 18. So here is that thing in the ice we talked about. Definitely one of the better threats in Nathan's deck, but this opens the door for Greg to deploy something powerful here on turn 3. Likes of Liliana seem excellent here, and this is one of the things that you really had to consider back when you were playing Jund versus, is it Phoenix? I had a lot of experience on both sides of that matchup before the Faithless Looting ban. Just jamming turn 2 thing in the ice on the draw against Jund felt very risky, because if they just cast Liliana, you got punished hard.
At least when you were playing Phoenix, when they edict your thing in the ice and then tick up, you have things you want in your graveyard.
Yeah, but here we see this Liliana resolving, and it's going to be a pretty big problem for Nathan. I mean, it's at best just going to be a clean 2-for-1 when he untaps and lightning bolts it, right? Like, and that's, I think Greg's going to be pretty happy with that exchange.
I suppose you can get half of that card back if you play a Young Pyromancer first?
Yeah, more or less. So here comes that Misty Rainforest. There's the lightning bolt we mentioned. And I assume we'll just see Nathan ship it back. Plenty of 2-mana interactive spells here on Nathan's side. Remand, potentially even some other suited counter magic. Mana Leak kind of springs to mind there.
We do know he has Cryptic Command in his deck, but it's not on yet. And he plays the triple blue one from Modern Horizons?
Yes, Archmage's Charm.
Archmage's Charm.
Here comes Tireless Tracker. Greg will take a point off of his Nurturing Peatland. Verdant Catacombs, the land for turn, means that Tireless Tracker did resolve. We'll see if Nathan has anything he wants to do now. Looks like Greg just shipped the turn back over to Nathan.
We've got this Detective Pikachu here right online.
Yep, clue tokens. Notably, Greg still holding on to the activation of his Verdant Catacombs. I wouldn't have hated to see a sacrifice in response to that fetch land activation there. Just make sure we get the clue and not end up in a weird spot where, we want the mana and then our opponent can lightning bolt our Tireless Tracker at the end of turn, but...
And now, even though that you've let the fetch land resolve, you see he's got an island, so you have another opportunity to do it before he untaps.
But looks like Greg just going to hold the information for now, potentially have various colored 1-mana spells we might want access to. That seems pretty likely to me. If he's just going to go get a tapped Shock here, I would have expected to see it at the end of turn there and make sure that we get the extra clue out of it. All right, Fiery Islet.
Another reason to delay your crack is if you have another Tireless Tracker in your hand.
It looks like Nathan just says land go, and then Greg finds himself in the awkward spot where, I'm going to get a tapped Shock now. So, if you just want to lightning bolt my Tireless Tracker in response, which it looks like, Nathan decides that he wants to do. Now Greg's out of clue.
Yeah, and it's exactly the way you wrote it up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually reasonably happy that this played out this way, because it seems kind of nitpicky, oh man, maybe you should have cracked your fetch there. But I don't know, it really matters sometimes. That's an entire extra card that Greg's going to miss out on later in this game, and that easily could be the difference in this game.
Yeah, a lot of times when I'm playing green, black, and modern and I resolve a Tireless Tracker, I don't have time to crack all my clues. But these blue counterspell matchups are exactly the times where you need all your clues. Yeah, they're all going to be useful.
They feel like they're going to be the good ones here. Another good one here for Greg, Raging Ravine, a threat that Nathan cannot counterspell, and if he ever manages to find time to get in the first attack, Lightning Bolt isn't going to be able to kill it anymore. So if you ever end up in a position where your opponent taps out for something and you can just jam your first activation of Raging Ravine in there, it's actually a very important sub-game that's played between this Jund Blue Moon deck is getting my Raging Ravine the first counter. So we'll see how that plays out. It looks like Greg had the option of playing it, but elected to play an untapped land. I wonder what he could be holding up here that made him want to do that. It looks like he has Assassin's Trophy in his hand and another Tarmogoyf, I think. Interesting.
Yeah, so you're not gonna draw into a Lightning Bolt and cast it, so it's really just the trophy.
Yeah, but we could have played that anyway with this mana. Perhaps he wanted to hold up. I'm not really sure why he elected to play that instead. I expect us to see us sacrifice a clue here. Indeed, Greg will. He draws a card. I didn't get a good look at either of the two off the top. I think one was Verdant Catacombs.
Does this Jund deck have 2 basic forests?
They often play... So, I can't say for certain what Greg's basic suite is, but when I was playing Jund, I was playing 2 basic swamp, 1 basic forest, 1 basic mountain.
Okay.
And I know I encouraged a lot of similarities between my Jund deck and Greg's Jund deck, but that was a couple formats ago at this point. I mean, that was that was back in Hogak days and all that. So it would not surprise me if we saw an extra basic forest in our deck or something along those lines.
Yeah, because maybe I want to crack this Wooded Foothills for a forest is the only other reason I can fathom to delay that.
Yeah, seems interesting. So here is Thoughtseize during Greg's main phase. And Nathan deciding if he wants to do anything about it. Looks like this is that Archmage's Charm that we mentioned. Mode counter target spell. So just 3 mana cancel your Thoughtseize. That doesn't feel great.
Yeah, that Archmage's Charm can be a divination, so that Thoughtseize just became a mind rot.
Yeah, pretty much. And we see a Fatal Push in hand here from Greg. I wonder if he'll just go ahead and fire that off on the Snapcaster Mage. But looks like he just elects that he doesn't care. I think I agree. I don't think you care. I think you're more than happy to, try and get your opponent when they, Cryptic try to bounce my Snap, or just if they play a Thing in the Ice or a Young Pyromancer at a later date.
So Greg's at 6 land, so he clearly doesn't crack the Nurturing Peat land immediately because he wants to hold up Assassin's Trophy in case a Blood Moon is resolved here.
Definitely.
But he is going to crack it at end of turn, I presume?
I would assume as much, yeah. You're not too worried about saving a permanent to sacrifice for Fatal Push. All of the creature-based threats in these decks are 2 mana, pretty much. Here we see Speak of the Devil. Here is a Young Pyromancer, and Greg gets immediately rewarded for not having Fatal Pushed. That Snapcaster Mage gets to snap off a Fatal Push on the Young Pyromancer, and he will untap now.
And these Tarmogoyfs are 5/6s, I believe.
That's, I believe, what that dice is denoting.
Oh, that makes sense.
So here is the draw off the Nurturing Peatland. And here is combat. So this is an attack for 10. I think Nathan just took it. That's pretty bold. What do you think about that?
I think Greg has Lightning Bolt in his deck.
Yeah, I mean, I think you were just supposed to chump away your Snap there. It seems pretty greedy to me to not just chump away your Snap there. Like, we have Lightning Bolt in our deck, now we're just dead to it for the rest of the game.
Although, does Nathan have any way to really get these Tarmogoyfs off the battlefield other than flipping the Thing in the Ice?
I mean, not really, let's be honest here. But still.
Yeah, that does stand to reason. You do need to keep your life total higher in order to find something, even if that only line is 4 Cryptic Commands in a row. You need to keep your draw steps live so that you get a chance to find them.
Speaking of Cryptic Commands, I expect to see one here. Nathan has to take 1 damage off of his Fiery Islet to
that
be
is
able
what
to
we like
cast
to call
it.
a clock.
Yep, so that'll resolve, and then Greg will animate Raging Ravine, still in his beginning of combat step, so Greg does manage to find the lethal here. Nathan just kind of puzzling it out.
And Greg's saying, yeah, I let your spell resolve, and then I animate my Raging Ravine and go to combat.
Which is the correct way to play that there, so good on Greg. I gave him a hard time about a single fetch land activation, but this definitely an important point here. You do have a window in the beginning of combat step after your opponent has tapped your team where you can, activate a man land or, turn something online into a creature to then attack your opponent with it. And it comes up quite often, I've found. Often happens in... I've managed to do that in Amulet Titan sometimes where, your opponent will... play a Cryptic Command, tap your team, and you can, make a zombie with Field of the Dead and like a Sakura Tribe Scout or something or other.
And then give it haste with your Slayer Stronghold?
Yeah, and that gets pretty cute.
That would definitely agitate me if you made that play against me.
Yeah, I've managed to do that once or twice, so pretty sweet. And regardless, we're going to see game number 3 here. I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but Nathan did win the first game in the match, so... we will be seeing a third game here from these two.
So, to survive against that line, Nathan had the option to cast the Cryptic Command with the modes tap your team, bounce your Raging Ravine.
Indeed.
But again, Nathan needed to draw running Cryptic Commands, and you're only going to get ahead with running Cryptic Commands if you're also drawing cards. Yeah, to dig for your lands.
Well, he also had to draw land because his next cryptic command would kill him if he didn't have another land because he had that fiery island. So it got pretty awkward pretty fast for Nathan there. And
maybe your opponent doesn't see it. Maybe do the thing that puts me dead on board and he doesn't animate is his best chance to win that game.
Sometimes that is your best chance to win. And, oftentimes when you do something like that, your opponent looks at you kind of funny and then, does the thing. And you're like, well, they saw it. Now they think I'm an idiot. And it's like, well, that I think you missing it and just saying okay, or even if I know, sometimes you'll just say okay or whatever and miss it.
Also, my opponent thinking I'm an idiot is kind of high EV.
It does help sometimes, yeah.
If they play loose thinking that you're going to make a mistake and you don't make that mistake, you can get some points back.
Definitely true. All right, so game number 3 here. We'll see Nathan on the play for this one. Let's see what these opening hands look like. We've got Renin 6 pulled to the front there. Lightning Bolt, Black Cleave Cliffs for Greg. Over on Nathan's side, I see Force of Negation, Snapcaster Mage. Not getting a great look at the rest of the hand there, unfortunately, but it looks like both players will be keeping their 7, as Scalding Tarn will be the first play of this game. It's going to find Basic Island. I assume we'll see a Serum Visions here from Nathan. Usually, if you're cracking this for Island proactively on your first turn of the game, you're going to be following with a Serum Visions, so...
Unless you're trying to opt for the Force of Negation to counter the Thoughtseize.
I believe he already has a Force of Negation. But, yeah, man, foiled. It seems quite literally foiled. If only you could discard Island. All right, here's the Serum Visions. I believe Thing in the Ice was the draw off the Serum Visions. I thought I saw a Lightning Bolt, but it looks like Nathan just going to go ahead and top with the Serum Vision. So
being on the play means we're going to get to tap out for... Fatal Push, for a Thing in the Ice, and not get punished the same way we did with Liliana. It can still get Fatal Pushed.
Definitely matters quite a bit. So here we see Nathan go ahead and take this line again. Here comes that Thing in the Ice, and now Greg has a much more difficult option. So if we don't have Fatal Push right now, we're going to be put in a hard spot.
I suppose if we untap and play another land in Abrupt Decay, we're not behind.
Yeah, very true.
We might be forced to get a basic here in order to enable us to continue playing the game if we tap out for an Abrupt Decay and then Nathan's thing for
Blood Moon. Yeah, definitely something to keep in mind. And, Blood Moon is not great against Jund in general because the deck is built to be able to fetch its basics and, in fact, wants to fetch basics most of the time. I would say that probably 60% of the time I crack a fetch land in Jund, I'm finding a basic. Which I would say is quite high given a 3-color deck, but that's probably also has something to do with playstyle. But I think that if we don't have a clean answer to this Thing in the Ice now, and if our opponent just has a Blood Moon this game, we're going to be in trouble. Blood Moon can steal games against Jund and often does it. I do go on my crusade that I don't think Blood Moon is great against Jund, and I think that most of the time Blue Moon players should board them out, because you should expect your opponent to get basics, and having a non-card in the Jund matchup is oftentimes a death sentence. But, right here it would have been good.
And even on turn 16 when all of our mana problems are finished, a Blood Moon does... mean we don't need an answer for every Raging Ravine our opponent plays for the rest of the game.
Definitely true, so it can matter there. Alright, so looks like Lightning Bolt, Cryptic Command, and I didn't see the third card there, but it looks like Greg just going to go ahead and take the Lightning Bolt. Interesting. I wonder why Greg would take Lightning Bolt there.
Also, can we get an F for respects in chat for the loss of our friend here, Renin 6?
Yeah, he's in exile also. Worth noting.
I mean to say, because he suffered a ban in Legacy today.
Yes, that is pretty unfortunate, and we're definitely going to have to talk about all this ban and restricted update when we find time in between rounds here, because it's quite a big shakeup to quite a few formats. So we'll get into that when we have the time. But in the meanwhile, we've got some nice action going on here. Inquisition of Kozilek takes a Lightning Bolt. Here comes the follow-up. Scavenging Ooze. Looks like both players going to go ahead and do some fetching. And here comes... what is going on here?
Magmatic
End-step
sinkhole.
magmatic sinkhole. All right, so magmatic sinkhole will take out the scavenging ooze,
Puts our thing in the ice to 2.
I believe. So 2 is quite low, but still no land for Nathan, still no threats for Greg. So we're kind of just sitting here staring at each other. You know, oftentimes these like mana difficulty games are decided by the player who has less lands eventually finding his mana versus a player flooding out, but I don't necessarily think that Greg is quite flooding out yet, and especially a card like Liliana does an excellent job of patching that up. And now, yeah, go ahead.
We're
sorry.
still in a tempo situation here, where Greg doesn't want to cast spells because he doesn't want to give Nathan the opportunity to cast his spells for value and flip the thing in the ice and start the clock. But Nathan has cantrips in his deck. He has proactive plays. He doesn't have them in his hand right this moment, which I guess is why we're seeing this end of turn cryptic command. We get to draw a card and bounce a thing so we don't fall behind.
Yeah, so here we see an interesting little interaction. So this was an interesting turn from both players. So Nathan did find his 4th mana, plays his land, says go, passes to Greg. Greg now knows that he has Cryptic Command up and a thing in the ice with 1 counter on it. That's definitely awkward. So he just was forced to say go. Nathan decides to take the first step, fires off the end step Cryptic Command, bouncing Blackcleave Cliffs. And then Greg finds that opportunity to double Lightning Bolt thing in the ice. So definitely an interesting interaction there.
I'd say that's a really nice piece of technique by Greg.
Yes.
50% of Magic players, I'm throwing that number out. Less proficient Magic players lose this game right there.
I agree. Yeah, for sure. So here is end step sacrifice my Fiery Islet from Nathan. Then he'll go ahead and untap. Scalding Tarn, Spirebluff Canal, I believe, are among the cards in his hand. I believe I also see a Remand, and I think that's a Cryptic Command as well. So a pretty stacked hand here from Nathan, if I dare say so myself. Notably, Greg could not cast Liliana that turn because his only land was that Blackcleave Cliffs that got bounced. So he found himself in kind of an awkward position here, and now he's just going to go ahead and jam this Liliana into the expected counter magic. This is often something you just have to do in this matchup.
And if it gets remanded, that's fine. If it gets Archmage's Charmed, that's fine. If it gets Cryptic Commanded, that sucks because you give your opponent the 2-for-1, but Cryptic Command is very likely to get that. And you want to do it before your opponent can do the Mystic Sanctuary trick, but we have that Scalding Tarn.
Yeah.
So you want to tell us how this works?
Yeah, so we've got Mystic Sanctuary and Cryptic Command. So if you cast Cryptic Command countering a spell, and you choose your second mode is return target permanent to its owner's hand, and you target your own Mystic Sanctuary, you can end up basically drawing Cryptic Command every turn for the rest of the game. So you just need 1 to 2 Cryptic Commands and a Mystic Sanctuary, and now Nathan will draw Cryptic Command every turn for the rest of the game.
There is this window right now where Nathan has a Cryptic Command on top of his library and not in his hand.
Oh, he does have one in his hand as well, because he has 2 Cryptic Commands.
Oh.
Because he had a Cryptic Command in his graveyard from earlier when he went to bounce the Blackcleave Cliffs. So that Mystic Sanctuary, when he got it untapped with the Scalding Tarn, actually put it on top of his deck.
Perfect.
So,
I was here thinking he needed to survive with a remand this turn.
No. He's just got Cryptic Command online for the rest of the game. So let's see if Greg can manage to beat that. It seems difficult.
I believe you have to beat this by, I guess, end of turn spell, untap spell is a fine option, although in this case, the remand fogs that play.
Yeah.
The other way you can beat it is to not play anything for several turns and let us both draw a bunch of cards and play lands, and then eventually you're going to cast multiple spells in one turn.
Yep.
And Nathan's mana is not going to be able to keep up, especially if you're playing Thoughtseizes and he's trying to play Cryptic Commands.
Yeah. So that's basically the position Greg is in right now. At this point, drawing lands is absolutely paramount. Every time that Nathan does that Cryptic Command loop, notably, he does not get to play a different land first turn. He picks up his land and then he replays it, so he's not going to be able to develop his mana. So, if you're just playing land, you know, from Greg's side, eventually you'll have enough mana to be able to overpower that by playing multiple spells in a turn. But here we see, oh boy,
Magus risks casting a spell.
Yeah, now we've got a lot of problems. First thing foremost, to finish up that initial thought, Greg just isn't hitting his land drops. And that's a big problem right now. Secondly, now we have to beat Jace too.
But Jace is a sorcery. Nathan tapped lands to play him.
Yeah. This will give Greg a window.
He could very well have a Cryptic Command or what have you, but we are going to get to threaten this Jace with Kolaghan's Command.
Yeah. Here is Kolaghan's Command and Lightning Bolt, and now Greg's going to get to untap and play spells this turn.
So another brilliant piece of technique here.
Yes.
The Kolaghan's Command was not enough to kill the Jace, but it was enough to get Nathan to remand it, or Force of Negation it in this case, which meant Greg's one remaining mana was allowed to resolve Lightning Bolt, which actually got Jace off the battlefield, which the Kolaghan's Command would not have done.
So actually, Nathan +2'd his Jace that turn.
Oh.
So both of his spells just resolved. Nathan actually just didn't have any interaction. So he just needed to deal 5 damage to the Jace.
So when I thought I saw something go to the graveyard that was not a Force of Negation, that's why there are no more cards in exile?
Yes, I do believe.
Oh. Something went to the graveyard because
Jace.
Kolaghan's Command's other mode was you discard a card.
Nathan discarded a card to the Lightning Bolt, I believe. So that is why. And now, however, Liliana's on the field. That card does interrupt this Cryptic Command loop because Greg can just make him discard his Cryptic Command. If, as long as Nathan is basically going like, every turn I'm going to discard 1 or 2 spells or whatever. I'll go ahead and stop now as Liliana gets Magmatic Sinkhold. And now we're back in this awkward position where Greg's got, Nathan's got Cryptic Command. Oh, Bloodbraid Elf though. Thoughtseize.
Thoughtseize is not... Oh, it is going to help here. No, it's not, because we're going to Cryptic Command bounce our Mystic Sanctuary and Thoughtseize is going to miss it.
Yeah. That's absolutely what's going to happen here.
So Bloodbraid Elf is one of the ways that we can break this because of Bloodbraid into a Lily or a Goyf or something to that effect. You can't counter both of them.
It's very, very good. Yeah, but Thoughtseize is not going to be one of them. Yeah. So we'll see Nathan presumably counter the Bloodbraid Elf, pick up my Mystic Sanctuary, let the Thoughtseize resolve. Thoughtseize will just show you a land. Can't take that. Then, notably, Nathan will get 1 blank draw. Off the top of his deck that doesn't know what it is, and Greg will get 1 turn of free Cryptic Command. Oh, it looks like Nathan elected to bounce Blackcleave Cliffs to Greg's hand as opposed to anything else. So voluntarily decided, he basically just elected out of this Cryptic Command game, is what Nathan just did.
I feel like that's happened twice so far. When he slammed so we were in a position where like, how does Nathan lose? It doesn't look good for Greg. Let's brainstorm ideas.
Yeah.
And then Nathan tapped out for a sorcery.
Definitely.
And then, how does Nathan lose? How does Greg win this game? Let's brainstorm ideas. And then Nathan makes a different play.
Yeah, Nathan basically just said to himself, I'm done with this Cryptic Command game. I don't want to do this anymore. Was that Bloodwater Entity?
Bloodwater Entity.
Oh,
he asked me for a
my God.
today. So this is just another Mystic Sanctuary.
Holy.
It's a 3-mana 2/2 flyer with prowess. And when it enters the battlefield, you put an instant or sorcery from your graveyard on top of your library. So again, we get that Cryptic Command back on top of our library. But if for some reason we don't want to pop our put our Mystic Sanctuary back on top of our deck, like we don't want to hurt ourselves on mana.
It kills our opponent while we're doing it. Wow, that's sick.
And it also lets us continue to draw lands.
Continue to make
while we're
lands
doing it, or play
drops?
lands.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is sick. I'm about Bloodwater Entity. It's been a while since I've seen this card.
It's been a while since you played Hour of Devastation Limited?
Yeah, it has been. I'm a big fan of Hour of Devastation Limited, and I've cast my fair share of Bloodwater Entities in my day. So this is a sick throwback. I'm quite happy about this one. All right, anyways, I digress. Tireless Tracker hits the board for Greg, and Cryptic Command on top of Library for Nathan, I assume. I didn't actually see him set it back there, but I'm just going to go ahead and assume that Cryptic Command is on top of Nathan's library
did
here.
see him grab something. He's probably not getting Serum Visions.
Yeah, it would be like a Lightning Bolt, probably would be the next thing. Oh, Assassin's Trophy. Now, that's interesting.
And I'm not sure exactly what it says on Assassin's Trophy, but I think
it is a May.
Oh, okay.
It is a
so
May.
It's not like Field of
Yeah.
Ruin.
Looks like Nathan can elect to not search, which he does, so he gets to draw the spell that he put back on top. Again, we're assuming that's Cryptic Command, though I can't confirm. Nathan ships the turn back over to Greg with 1 in hand.
This loop looks a whole lot worse when your opponent has 9 power on the battlefield.
Yeah, I tend to agree. So, speak of the devil, here's sacrifice a clue. Let's make it 10 power, shall we?
That's actually the 9th power.
Oh, that is the 9th power? Well, here's 10.
You got it.
And 11.
Oh.
And Greg will go ahead and sacrifice the Verdant Catacombs immediately. Nathan, no responses here. Greg finds a nice basic swamp. He'll go ahead and get a second clue. So where do you think this game's going from here? Is Nathan supposed to just tap your team, bounce my Bloodwater Entity? Tap your team, draw a card?
I'm pretty sure you Cryptic Command countered the spell, draw a card. That's where I would be.
Yeah,
you're
that looks
giving up
good
the
to me.
loop, but you are getting your 2 for 1.
Oh, he put Magmatic Sinkhole back on top. Alright.
And he didn't cast it before 2 more clues were made.
Yeah, that perplexes me. I think that was definitely not the correct timing on that spell, but here we are. So, once again, Nathan opting out of this Cryptic Command loop thing. It looks like Nathan just is not about playing Cryptic Command block in this matchup, which I think is somewhat interesting. I wonder why that is.
So, another thing is, another way that Greg has to get out of the Cryptic Command loop is by playing Manlands.
Yes.
That's an uncounterable threat, although I guess Cryptic Command can't choose bounce twice.
Yeah, so anyway, we see Greg go for the lethal attack. Nathan attempt to flash in a Vendilion Click as a blocker. Greg just bolt it down. That will find lethal for Greg, and Greg manages to take both sideboard games in a somewhat splendid fashion, I might add, and take down this round number 1 here for himself. But yeah, anyway, Nathan opted out of this Cryptic Command loop multiple times, and we were talking about Manlands and other things before I cut you off with the end of the game there, so why don't you go ahead and continue on that.
Nathan's quite proficient on this deck. We've seen him play it several times before. So he clearly assembled that line and then opted out of that line. He's probably played that line enough times to see that it doesn't work in this matchup.
Yeah, seems likely.
So the ways that Greg has to break that loop is if we try to resolve a spell and he Cryptic Command bounces our Mystic Sanctuary, you can kill the Mystic Sanctuary in response to an Assassin's Trophy, but that's dubious. I don't know why I started with that one. Bloodbraid Elf lets us put 2 spells on the stack that we have to try to counter
important.
both of them.
Yeah.
And then Raging Ravine is a threat that Cryptic Command isn't going to answer cleanly, because cleanly in this case means bouncing it and bouncing our Mystic Sanctuary, and Cryptic Command can't choose the bounce mode twice. Yeah. So it could be Nathan's realized that if I spend every turn casting Cryptic Command,
I will lose eventually.
Exactly. If I don't further my board state, I'm going to lose this game. So he took a risk by slamming his Jace. He ticked it up to 5, which meant he ended up being disadvantaged. Or I guess it was a parody when we Lightning Bolted and Kolaghan's Commanded it.
Yeah.
But he had to do something to further his board and end the game, because Jund apparently can grind out Cryptic Command every turn.
Yeah, that's believable, I suppose. Mostly if you aren't progressing your mana, I can totally buy that. I think if you were able to play land drops while you were Cryptic Commanding every turn, I don't think Jund would be able to deal with that. But I do think that Jund can just play a nice draw land, go, draw land, go, draw land, go game with you. And Blue Moon has significantly less answers that match up well with Jund's threats than a deck like Blue-White Control does. You know, Lightning Bolt does not deal with Tarmogoyf like Path to Exile does. You don't have Field of Ruin for the Jund deck's Manlands. You don't have as many big Planeswalkers that run away with the game, cards like the 5-mana Teferi, cards like Narset even to an extent, that prevent Jund from really operating on that axis. So I think it makes sense that Cryptic Command every turn out of Nathan's deck in particular definitely won't get the job done, and maybe you just need to try and slam a Planeswalker and run away with the game. But, I mean, it looked pretty grim there for Greg for a little bit, if I had to be honest, when he was missing land drops in that third game under that Cryptic Command loop lock. So I would have been interested to see how the game would have played out if Nathan would have just kept going with that line. And I'm not necessarily saying that that was correct for Nathan, because I'm not going to claim to be an expert in this matchup, but I believe Nathan would be. But I would love to have seen that game play out in that manner.
All right, so it looks like the round just ended, so we're going to have pairings up for the next one going live. We're going to cut to Hot Damn Scandal real quick. We'll be back in about 3 minutes. Thanks, guys.
We'll see you guys in the next round.
I'm going to do this backwards.
The bottom fell out of the clouds today, and the rain came down like a mirror. One big sheet and it shattered on the ground. Now it's 7 years of bad luck all over this town. It's collection time on all of your debts, and you can't get by just talking. Your smile don't work, and your car don't start, and your doors ain't keeping you alone. No, not even if you like them. No, not even if you like them. When you're tapped into that bit of vein, just about anything feels good. The sun tried shining on a lost boy's eyes. They reflected oh so pretty, but it's cold behind them golden shores, and the sweet light wasn't nothing more than their own damn wishing, 'cause they just don't listen. Now wish on your candles, pray to your God, cry for your mama, put $1 on the bar. It feels like breathing, but the only good feeling ain't a gamble, is a sin. So I think I play it safe and get a gin. I'll take the devil for a spin. When you're tapped into that bit of rain, just about anything feels good. For some the morning brings another day, but all it does for me is shine an ugly light around in the room that I've been hiding in. Now I take the easy way, yeah, that gets harder every day, but I ain't here to fix myself. I'm just trying to blind these eyes from hell. When you're tapped into that bit of vein, just about anything feels good. I like to swim at the bottom of the barrel. I like to sleep in hidey holes and barroom stalls. I like to hear the piano playing in the bloody little dawn. I like to wake up with the devil and drink him till he's gone. The queen is drunk and someone armed the pawns. Oh, the truth they say is an acquired taste, a vice I've never thought to own. There is no cleaner left, so we filter it through cigarettes. But the gambler's mercy keeps us blind and fade.
Alrighty, welcome back here for round number 2 of the Pairodice Games Monday Night Modern. We have Greg versus Bryant here at the 1-0 table. We just watched Greg beat up on Blue Moon in a couple post-board games, and while we haven't seen Bryant yet tonight, but he's got a somewhat different take on a familiar archetype. So we've got Devoted Druid, but it is a Bant version of the deck.
All right.
And what Bryant is getting out of these this extra color here is cards like 3 mana Teferi, Oko, and some extra value sprinkled in with his, Eladamri's Call and whatever package. So
he's a mid-rangey planeswalker version of Devoted Druid?
Basically, yeah.
That's probably excellent in this matchup.
Definitely an upgrade, but I'm not going to go as far as to say excellent.
All right.
Traditionally, Jund just annihilates this deck. I mean, it's not close. I have seen a lot of these matchups, and I think I've seen Druid win a match once or twice. But these upgrades are very important. to Teferi, so that you can, try and protect your combo with a postmortem lunge, is probably the best plan to a post-board victory. And I do believe that the Teferis are only in the sideboard of the deck and not sitting in the main board, which is unfortunate. But we'll have to see what Bryant manages to pull together for this game here. So see if he can manage to fight through Jund's just heavy removal suite.
So this is a Duskwatch Recruiter. It's part of the win condition. When you do have infinite mana, it can search your whole it can look at the top 3 cards of your library and pick a creature an arbitrary number of times until you find your Walking Ballista and kill your opponent. In the blue-white control matchups, it's also a nice little piece of card advantage.
Yeah.
But here, you'd want that as well, because you expect your opponent to trade card for card with you.
Absolutely.
But let's say Greg plays a Tarmogoyf here, a Scavenging Ooze, or doesn't kill our Duskwatch Recruiter. Do we spend next turn committing to the board, or do we spend next turn's mana drawing a card because we think the game's going to go long enough that'll matter?
So, looking at Bryant's hand, it looks like a couple of just, Night of Autumns. I think I would much rather just go ahead and spin than activate then develop the board if it's just going to be like a dumb 4-3. That being said, I think Bryant's actually just missing on mana here. I think he's got double Night of Autumn, double Court of Calling in hand as his 4 cards, so he's just going to go ahead and flip his Duskwatch Recruiter on Greg's upkeep because he does not have a spell to cast, and then, Greg will kindly get back to him with a spell to cast. Nice Liliana of the Veil. To be honest, it feels like we're done here.
Yeah, Liliana is very punishing when you're screwed on mana. Because if Bryant doesn't have anything to cast, then at least you have this potential energy built up for later. Yeah. But here, instead, he's getting 2 cards taken out of his hand. So when he does get mana, he's going to have a single Night of Autumn and a single Court of Calling to try and do something with that.
It's going to be rough for sure. So now Greg, looking down at his hand, I believe his hand is Dark Confidant Assassin's Trophy. So he's definitely going to have to debate whether he wants to actually plus this Liliana, and if he does, what is he discarding? It's definitely worth noting that he might just elect to not plus his Liliana here, but it looks like he has decided that he will be plussing because, Bryant already showed what card he's discarded. I think Greg's just debating which one it will be. I think I'm a pretty big fan of just discarding the Assassin's Trophy here. Save the Bob, try and refuel.
I was going to say that I like the tick up because you want to punish Bryant and get those cards out of his hand. But if Bryant draws a green mana now, he can attack with his Scavenging Ooze at the Liliana, and that becomes real awkward for Greg.
It definitely does, and that's the risk in discarding the Assassin's Trophy, which it looks like Greg elected not to do. He discarded the Dark Confidant. But I think I'm willing to try and fade green mana for 1 turn to just be able to trade off and then keep my Liliana around. But
in that game, it did pay off.
It did, but notably, Greg kept the Assassin's Trophy and not the Dark Confidant, so now he isn't going to have that constant card advantage to try and fuel back up.
That's true, but the Liliana is probably going to be game-winning anyway, and he does have the Nurturing Peatland to go try to find some proactive way to end this game.
Definitely. We'll see what Greg elects to discard. It looks like it will be Assassin's Trophy, and then he's just going to go ahead and jam out another Liliana and uptick it again. So going with the good old-fashioned Mind Brought here.
So that brings the Liliana's loyalty from 3 on the previous one up to 4 on the new one.
Yep, indeed. Here's End Step Eladamri's Call from Bryant. I wonder what he's going to go find here.
Loyal Cathar.
Whatever, it feels like whatever he finds is going to get sacrificed to Liliana. Perhaps this might be the time for a nice Dryad Arbor to shine through. Try and rip something good.
Dryad Arbor. Oh, so getting the Devoted Druid, you can, if you draw a fetch land, play your Devoted Druid and then protect it with Dryad Arbor.
All right. So we've got Devoted Druid landing here. Looks like from Bryant. Greg untaps and draws a land for turn. He'll go ahead and Edict Bryant. Of course, you have to. As much as I think Greg probably wishes he could get that last card out of Bryant's hand, of course we don't have the time. And good point in chat there from Wandering Venser. Yeah, the green mana probably didn't even matter that turn. You could just jump and Edict.
But our Liliana was at 2 loyalty.
At the point,
so if we lose our Bloodbred Elf and our Liliana to the Scavenging Ooze...
Then we're just left with Dark Confidant.
Yeah.
Could be worse.
We had actually discarded Dark Confidant. We're left with just Assassin. Oh, never mind.
In the world that I was suggesting, where we would be in that place. But speaking of the devil, it looks like Greg just drew another Liliana. So a mono Liliana here just keeps taking Bryant off of anything relevant, and Liliana quickly approaching her ultimate. That is a 5 loyalty counter Liliana currently in play. So 2 more turns and Bryant's going to be losing 1 land.
Yeah, the nice thing about not having any permanents is that Liliana's ultimate looks far less frightening.
Yeah, and this is how these matchups play out so often for Jund. You watched, Red and 6 kill your bird. All right, Liliana, 2 for 1 you, 2 for 1 you, 2 for 1 you. And it's just so hard for these Druid decks to keep up with that because every card in their deck is so easily dealt with on the axis that Jund is trying to play.
So this is time for the Dryad Arbor to shine. The Liliana ticked up to 6, discarding our last card.
Ooh.
Oh, we can get Dryad Arbor here and threaten Liliana and then draw a threat and use our Dryad Arbor to protect the threat, but instead we got the Breeding Pool.
Would have been quite good. I mean, we're talking as if we knew that Dryad Arbor were in Bryant's deck.
I suppose that's true.
I certainly don't know that. As a matter of fact, I don't think it is.
But here's the case for having one.
I did want to bring it up that, we saw it in the last match be not great, as it would have been much better as an untapped land, but you did mention your love for the card, so I felt the need to bring it up again. Here is Once Upon a Time in the main phase from Bryant. Gonna take a dig. We see Devoted Druid. Duskwatch Recruiter stands out to me as the best card here, actually. But it looks like Bryant's just going to take Devoted Druid, ship it back.
You're trying to play something that your opponent feels like they have to leave you without when they ultimate their Lily, but ultimating Lily is not what's happening here.
Yeah. Greg just decides to downtick his Liliana and make Bryant sacrifice a creature, and I agree with that line for what it's worth from Greg. Doesn't really feel like you're in any pressure to ultimate your Liliana. It's just going to sit here, and honestly, I bet that ultimating it is the easiest way for you to lose the game, because if you ultimate it, you're out of Liliana, your opponent has 2 lands in play, you have nothing in hand. You could easily draw land, your opponent could draw perfect and kill you. So that feels like one of the easier ways to lose the game. But now we find ourselves in a position where Bryant drew a couple dumb creatures in a row. He got to Court of Calling in response to a Liliana Plus. Go find a Noble Hierarch, Birds of Paradise for turn here. So now this Liliana Edict looks pretty well protected on Bryant's side, so now he's in a position where he could theoretically draw some action cards and pull away with the game.
I believe this Hierarch is going to take Liliana off the battlefield. No, I must have missed 1 loyalty somewhere.
Yeah, I do not believe so.
I thought it went from 6 down to 4, got attacked by Hierarch down to 3 and then Edict to 1, and then got attacked again. So
that's what I thought as well.
Something was missed.
But it appears as though we are wrong.
Bloodbred Elf, pretty good on this board.
Yeah. Fatal Push, that'll take out Noble Hierarch. And presumably a nice attack for 3. And now we should see the game kind of just get ground into a close here while Bryant desperately tries to find anything to do. Here is Waterlogged Grove. That'll cycle for Bryant, but will of course use his land drop. Vizier of Remedies. All right. To start, I guess.
I believe, even though we were wrong last time, Lily must have been at 2, so she must be at 3 now.
Indeed.
Greg opts not to continue to pressure because he wants to be able to edict away the Vizier now.
Makes sense to me. So here's the attack. He'll allow Bryant to trade his Vizier essentially for 2 loyalty counters, or give Bryant the option of trading it for a Bloodbraid Elf, which I believe is wrong, right? I think you're just supposed to minus it there and not give your opponent the choice because, theoretically, if you know what's best, they also would know what's best, assuming both players knew exactly the 75 they were playing with. But if you're giving your opponent the choice, generally it's better to just take away that choice.
But it's possible that you know what's best, and what's best for you is that he trades with your Bloodbraid Elf, so you want to give them the option.
Also very possible.
But in this case, knowing that we have a Tarmogoyf in our hand, we want to get rid of the Vizier now because we're threatening lethal.
To apply lethal. So here's Eladamri's Call. We'll see what Bryant wants to find. I don't believe Liliana has another Edict in her this turn, so
it's
whatever
pretty
we find
tough. It would
should
take something
be able to
like
stick.
a Kitchen Finks.
Yeah. I mean, we're probably just going to have to chump block with whatever we find here. Walking Ballista looks interesting to me. Walking Ballista here for 1 means that we could block the Tarmogoyf. And
Reflector Mage
nothing
would be strong
good.
here.
Yeah.
Reflector Mage isn't a card that I expect to see in a Devoted Druid deck, even
like
a Bant one, but I know Bryant
Witness.
loves it.
Eternal Witness got pulled to the front. That would be good if it weren't for the fact that Liliana Uptick's just going to make you discard the card again. Oh, okay. Deputy of Detention. That one's not too bad. Lightning Bolt will do it. And then the Liliana's loyalty does not change because it never left the battlefield.
He did reach for its loyalty and change it, so I'm pretty sure he's explaining now that he's letting the ability resolve and then lightning bolting it.
Yes.
Because he did reach for the dice and fiddle with it.
Sounds correct to me. Which,
But he's saying, but now you're dead.
Which, of course, is correct, assuming your Liliana has less than 3 loyalty. And if it has more than 3 loyalty, you'll want to lightning bolt it with the trigger on the stack. So, fun little bit of tech there. Let's take a look at both players' sideboards. Greg on Jund, we have 2 Plague Engineer, 1 Alpine Moon, 1 Ashiok Dream Render, 1 Damping Sphere, 3 Fulminator Mage, 1 Weather the Storm, 2 Collector Roof, 2 Collective Brutality, and a Nissel Vital Force. What sounds good here?
Plague Engineer looks strong here. There's not one name that you're always going to sit on, but usually Plague Engineer is going to enter the battlefield and kill something.
Human does a darn good job.
Does that kill Vizier and Hierarch?
Vizier and Noble Hierarch, yeah.
That's pretty decent.
As well as shrinking Duskwatch Recruiter on its front, and Deputy of Detention was another... Or no, Deputy of Detention's not a human, that's a Vidalcan Wizard. I think those are the only targets, if I'm correct. But regardless, quite good.
There's an argument for Collective Brutality here because it can kill a thing and it can take the instance out of Bryant's hand. But I expect that the Jund deck has so many cards that are so good in the matchup in the main board that won't end up making the cut.
I tend to agree. Let's take a look at Bryant's side of the field over on Druid. We have 2 Leyline of Sanctity, 2 Spell Pierce, 3 Mystical Dispute, 2 Veil of Summer, 3 Teferi Time Raveler, and 3 Oko Thief of Crowns. What sounds good to you here?
So I hate the card Leyline of Sanctity, and I never want it in my 75. But if I am going to play that card, this is the kind of matchup that I want to play it in. It turns off Liliana's Edict. It turns off all the Thoughtseizes.
Yep.
What I'm really hoping to see is Teferi and Oko, because that's why this deck is Bant, and that's why this deck is a green-white.
Veil of Summer also. Hello.
Oh, right. Sorry, I thought that card was banned.
It should be.
Veil of Summer also, it's insane against Fatal Push, it's insane against Assassin's Trophy. It counters Abrupt Decay, not
yes,
technically,
it's
but
absurd.
practically. It was called Green's 1-mana Cryptic Command.
That's because that's what it does, yeah. It's absurd, but yeah.
I'm not sure what you have to do in order to jam, that's 10 cards into our deck, so there's no way they're all making it.
I think they probably will all make it.
You think they'll all make it?
Yeah.
So, are we cutting Duskwatch Recruiters?
I think we're going to trim some of our combo package, for sure. I'm more than happy to cut a Vizier of Remedies or 2. They don't do anything outside of killing our opponent, and all of these things make it possible to kill our opponent. Like, I just don't think that with these cards you can combo kill Jund in any reasonable world, right? So I'm more than happy to get rid of those. We still have Eladamri's Call and all that, and then I'm also reasonably happy cutting a Court of Calling or 2 when Jund's trying to attack your creature base as much as it is. It's pretty unlikely that you're going to have enough creatures to be able to court for what you want, and even enough mana. You often will later in the game, but at that point, what would a Court of Calling have done on that board type of thing? It's kind of my argument for that.
Yeah,
and
I
then
believe he resolved one for Bird's Paradise.
Yeah, it didn't. It was Noble Hierarch. I think it didn't matter at all.
Sure.
And then also I'm happy cutting some dorks. Slow it down. All the all the dorks get shot down by Ren in 6. I'm not happy about that. All my dorks get gunned down by Plague Engineer. I'm not happy about that. So get some 1 toughness creatures out of my deck. Get some dorks out of my deck that don't really do anything. Just really up the beef in my deck and expect to try and play a slightly longer game where you're not trying to goldfish your opponent because you're going to have to, and you need to bring the tools to win that type of matchup. And I still don't love Bryant's position in a post-board game. I would still take probably Jund's main 60 over Bryant's post-sideboard configuration, even with Veil of Summer, which I think really alludes to how bad I think this matchup is.
We didn't see any spells in Bryant's game 1 with a converted mana cost of higher than 3.
We did not.
We know he's playing Birds of Paradise, where we suspect he's on the full 4 Noble Hierarch. So he's got a stack of Dorks and Devoted Druids, and nothing powerful to do with that mana if you're not trying to combo off.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right.
Yeah, which is why I think we want to gut some of them. Pretty much. I mean, they're in the deck to add speed in the matchups where you need it. And don't get me wrong, they are powerful. Some of the more powerful things you can do with these decks are just play dumb 3-mana Planeswalkers on turn 2 in a post-board game. Teferi, Oko, that type of thing. But regardless, let's take a look at how the game is progressing. We've already got quite a bit of action. Both players keep their 7-card hands. Bryant starts things off with Leyline of Sanctity, and that's definitely going to color the rest of this game. How do you think this is going to affect the entire game?
Well, if Greg was planning on playing a turn 1 Thoughtseize or Inquisition, which is often what you're planning on doing,
yeah,
you're not planning on doing that anymore. Once you see the Giver of Runes, you're already priced into spending your removal early, but there's an Inquisition at least in his hand, and it's dead.
Yep, already gone.
We could easily see an Assassin's Trophy pointed at that Leyline to unlock these cards, at some point this game, but you don't want to do that early, because Bryant can slam a 4-drop next turn, presuming that one exists.
Yeah, it also gets pretty awkward sometimes, where if you just cast Bloodbraid Elf, and you just, like, hit a Thoughtseize, you just have to decline, obviously, because you don't want to target yourself with it, you know. Thankfully, you can decline. But speaking of awkward, Bryant, missing his second land drop, does just go ahead and cast Birds of Paradise, ship the turn back. Greg goes ahead, fires a lightning bolt at it, and Bryant tries again. Damned if he does, damned if he doesn't.
So we talked about this Inquisition being stuck in his hand, but we're going to find another game where Bryant doesn't have very much mana and Greg has a Liliana. Liliana's +1 targets all... Sorry, doesn't target.
Does not
it
target,
affects
correct.
all players, so you still get to attack Bryant's hand that way, and it lets you turn your Inquisition into a magic card.
Maelstrom pulls your bird. Hello, cha-ching. Okay. Anyways, back to Bryant. We did spike the land. Misty Rainforest allows Bryant to find his Hallowed Fountain. We've got all our colors. We've got 2 mana now. Let's see what Bryant elects to do. He does have an Oko in his hand. Notably, that's pretty powerful if he ever manages to get that one onto the field.
So far, Bryant has deployed a threat every turn. Use the word threat loosely, but played a spell every turn that was a permanent. And Greg has spent all of his turns answering those permanents. Yeah. So the fact that he's down on mana...
And speak of the devil, there is that Assassin's Trophy on Leyline of Sanctity.
So that's going to give Bryant the mana he needs to cast his Oko. But first...
It's going to get taken, yeah. It's a cruel world. All right, and here is Inquisition of Kozilek. I think some less astute scholars could have seen this one coming. After you,
are you calling me a less astute scholar?
No. I'm calling anyone who didn't see this one coming a less astute scholar. All right, so we'll see if Bryant has any responses. He does.
He
not.
taps the green, putting the fear of Veil of Summer into Greg's heart.
Could you
that
imagine?
Would have been a blowout.
Could you imagine? I mean, that would have been disgusting.
But instead, it's an Oko, it's an Eladamri's Call, and it's a Walking Ballista. So we're going to take the Oko, and Bryant's going to probably...
a whole lot of air, yeah.
Maybe he draws a land and plays a 2/2 Ballista. That would be all right. It's at least a threat. We're gonna
definitely don't love it, but I guess that's where we're at.
The other thing is we can make the Scavenging Ooze a 4/4.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Greg's hand, I believe, is 2 lands and a Liliana. If I am not mistaken. So that definitely doesn't sound like a great place to be for Greg either.
Yeah, Greg has deployed 3 removal spells so far this game, so Bryant could just declare, you don't have another removal spell, pour all my mana into Scavenging Ooze and start the beat plan. It wouldn't pan out in this situation, but I don't hate the idea.
Definitely. Let's see what happens. There's that land. It's Horizon Canopy also. One of the better ones in his deck. Interested to see if Bryant's just going to go for the Walking Ballista here, or if he's going to deviate. Looks like he just lets Greg take 2, or the 3, excuse me. So presumably we'll be seeing some sort of spell here post-combat. Looks like it is a 1/1 Walking Ballista holding up Eladamri's Call. What do you think about this?
It doesn't feel sufficiently greedy to me. If I'm gonna cast Eladamri's Call this turn, unless there's a sweet 4-drop, like if we're getting a Shalai or a, I don't know, Kitchen Finks or like some more expensive card advantage spell that we haven't seen yet, then this play seems fine to me. But I suspect what we're getting is like Vizier
Or Devoted Druid or something.
and if we're doing that, I think I just want to get it and play it.
Also notably, Walking Ballista for 2 just trades with Liliana 1-for-1 when she edicts you, because you get to ping it for 1 and then sack the Walking Ballista, so that's interesting. But it looks like Greg just goes ahead and plays the Liliana and pluses, discards a land, and that's going to be the end of that for his Walking Ballista. Bryant responded by sacrificing Horizon Canopy and then discarding the Duskwatch Recruiter he found off the top, interestingly enough.
Yeah, I think Duskwatch Recruiter is like what we're looking for with that Eladamri's Call.
I think so too.
So Bryant must have something in his pocket. He must have a plan for this Eladamri's Call. Maybe it's a Thrag Tusk, but like some card that he thinks can win the game on its own in this matchup. And knowing what we know about Bryant, it could be anything.
Yeah, it could be absolutely anything. So it looks like Greg drew a card, says go. Here's the end step Eladamri's Call from Bryant. Let's see what he finds.
If he gets a 2-drop combo
be
piece, I'm going to
Eternal
be
Witness.
so disappointed.
Eternal Witness seems good.
Eternal Witness does seem good. Let you get the Eladamri's
That's
Call right back.
definitely something you have Bryant has in his deck. So
Then you draw land, and you Ewit for your Eladamri's Call, and your Eladamri's Call for Restoration Angel, and you're like, we got a plan, boys.
we can even just Ewit back our Duskwatch Recruiter that we discarded. And then we get a 2/1 out of the deal.
All right.
It's a little slow, but we got a
makes
2/1
sense.
out of the deal. All right.
But we could have just played the
Yeah, here we are.
Good, or
The Duskwatch Recruiter and attacked for 2 last turn, whatever. Would have been 3 this turn, actually. Or no, it wouldn't have, because Bryant played a spell. Regardless. Here is attack 4/5.
But we wouldn't have played a spell if we had discarded the Eladamri's Call to the Liliana.
You're right.
But then we wouldn't be able to activate it. Duskwatch Recruiter, it's all very complicated.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. Hello, Twidalia. Thank you for tuning in.
I don't know what that means, but I don't want to talk about it.
Good point. So, we've got untapped land go from Bryant, if I'm interpreting that hand signal correctly. And now Greg just in the tank, Assassin's Trophy, your Scavenging Ooze. I'd be shocked if we saw a response to this.
Skoo's too big.
I mean, I don't think we're just going to gain life here, right?
We didn't slam the Ewit.
I mean, I guess you're just supposed to gain 2 life, right? Exile 2 things from Greg's graveyard, Liliana, and maybe a creature from your yard or something.
I think you want to leave the creatures in there, because I think we're going to Ewit back the Scavenging Ooze on our next turn.
That makes sense. And now we just go ahead and get the land with the Assassin's Trophy and then put a counter on Walking Ballista. But it looks like Bryant just elects to go ahead and eat 3 things. So now we can't activate our Walking Ballista, which I don't love. I think I wanted to put a counter on this thing.
So specifically, he ate the enchantment and the 2 planeswalkers with the intent to shrink subsequent Tarmogoyfs.
Absolutely. Oh, speaking of Skoos.
Oh man, wish we'd eaten creatures.
Oh, wish we'd cast Eternal Witness.
Oh!
Yeah, that one hurts. That's for sure. And the Scavenging Ooze is too big to be able to shoot down with our Walking Ballista because we didn't put a counter on it either.
My Skoos is too big.
This is getting out of hand for Bryant rather quickly, I think. Though, of note, Greg might feel forced to block if we just attack. And then at that point, we could trade.
Can we?
Yeah, we could put a counter, and then Greg only has a single green mana up. So the Skoos can only become a 4... Oh, what am I talking about? No, we can't.
Yeah, if we can't get
What am
it
I talking
down,
about? What am I
we
talking
can't.
about? Yeah. So here is Eternal Witness attempting to get Eladamri's Call Oko.
But what we can do is play the Ewit targeting a non-creature. So Skooz needs to eat a non-creature. And then we get to Elkar Walking Ballista, which makes
attack
it
for
4.
4.
Oh, it only has 1 counter on it still?
Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's
We also
gonna
could've-
trade with Scavenging. He's gonna get eaten by Scavenging his next turn.
Also-
and it can't get bigger anymore.
Yeah, also theoretically could have played Oko and attempted to Elk Scavenging Ooze, and then
Get a 4/4.
make it a 5/5 probably. But then you do get your Eternal Witness through
That's true.
on whatever the second best card in your deck, in your graveyard is, right? So,
Oh, here's an Ashiok, but I'm pretty sure we
Seems
don't
irrelevant.
activate
Yeah.
it.
seems
Brian's like,
irrelevant.
come on, let me exile this.
I mean, I think you are probably not supposed to activate that Ashiok.
Right, you want food for your Scavenging.
Well,
Ooze.
I mean, you could Ashiok mill yourself and exile your opponent's graveyard. I don't hate that.
you don't want to exile your opponent's graveyard.
Yeah, but the idea is that you end up getting food back in your own graveyard, theoretically, which I don't hate, but also I think I believe that this is probably correct as well to just no activate here.
Did Greg just die?
He's gaining 2 life.
Going to 6, and his opponent has 6 power?
Yeah. I think he's going to 6. Is he going to 7 instead?
He is activating the Ashiok. So it does seem like we missed a life total change at some point during this game.
Yeah. It looks like it
Presumably
looks like we
Greg
missed a life
did
game.
not just kill himself.
Yeah, so it looks like he elected to go to 7, so going to 1 here. Of course, Walking Ballista cannot get bigger because it is an elk. Very, very, very important.
And then we must be in a situation where we put Greg to 1 in the Scavenging Ooze. Scavenging Ooze can kill us, except that there's
We
this
just have this jump
Giver of
blocker.
Runes.
Yeah. And, of course, if Greg does not find an answer, he is very dead. And it looks like he is very dead. A brick off the top spells that we will be going to game number 3 here for Brian. So now we got to look at those post-board planeswalkers in this sort of matchup. And what are your thoughts on it now after having watched one game in the post-board?
It definitely, we're not comboing. We're not comboing in game 3. Brian's is not comboing
we're not
in game
comboing.
3. So the Oko is going to be good because it's going to turn off abilities and upgrade things with counters, which really does look like what's going to be happening here.
Yep.
The Teferi I'm less confident in. It'll fog Tarmogoyf. It'll let us buy back Eternal Witnesses. But we're not trying to do anything tricky with instants. So Greg's just going to be able to play his cards at sorcery speed for the most part. So I don't think we're going to have Teferi in the deck. I don't think we should have Teferi in the deck.
Okay, definitely worth noting. Let's see what the players decide to change. Of course, we'll see Bryant on the draw here for game number 2, and Greg, of course, on the play. Now, let's talk a little bit more about these Leyline of Sanctities. Do you think that Greg's plan is supposed to change much, given that he's now seen Leyline of Sanctity? I think I would probably be changing my plan if I saw Leyline of Sanctity out of this deck, because usually that's a 4 of. It's not often a card you just slap 2 of in your sideboard. Usually if you're putting a Leyline in your sideboard, you're jamming all 4 because you want that in my opening hand clause to be online. So I would probably be inclined to go back and trim out some of my hand disruption and add in some of the collective brutalities we mentioned in, when we went over his sideboard plan.
Yeah, when your Inquisition becomes dead, you want it to turn into a disfigure.
Yeah, and, notably, if your Inquisition isn't dead, it can still be that. You can still use the Thoughtseize mode of it if your opponent doesn't have Leyline of Sanctity. So
I'm mostly a believer that Leyline of Sanctity turning off my Thoughtseize is fine because it just let me resolve my Thoughtseize for 0 mana and not pay life for it because you have a Leyline in play. If the game goes sufficiently long and you draw a bunch of Inquisitions and Thoughtseizes, that does get worse.
Yep.
I could imagine if you cut Tireless Tracker or some slow grindy thing and you see the Leyline, now you're going to bring your Tireless Tracker back in and you're going to take your Inquisition out. But I don't think you make a huge change. I don't think you decide, well, my Inquisitions are bad now, so I guess I bring in Fulminators or anything absurd like that.
No, I think it's probably a couple cards in, couple cards out type of thing. We're making small changes, I think, but I definitely would be inclined to go back to my sideboard and maybe trim that 5th Thoughtseize effect and put in a something else.
Yeah, I don't.
Just a little hedge.
I don't think I agree. But again, I said I hate Leyline of Sanctity. So my position on Leyline of Sanctity is if they draw 1, that sucks. If they draw 4, great. If they draw 0, great. I'm going to pretend it's not in their deck.
Yeah, that's a reasonable plan, I suppose. All right. Anyways, looks like players have made their sideboard adjustments. We'll go ahead and see what their opening hands look like here in just a moment. Bryant looking for very different hands in these post-board games than he would be in the pre-board games, and Greg pretty much looking for more of the same.
So what I'm curious about, with Bryant on the draw and in this newfound Planeswalker mode, are you still on all your mana dorks?
I can't believe we are, but obviously Bryant showed us double Birds of Paradise in game number 2. So...
And presumably we'd cut those before we cut Hierarchs.
Yes. So we must still have most of them. And maybe you're supposed to trim 1/1/1/1 or something like that to play around Plague Engineer maybe a little
Maelstrom
bit.
Pulse.
Maelstrom Pulse
Got
also.
our Bird Pulse already.
Yeah, Maelstrom Pulse also notable. Oh, boy. This, however, is not the way that this game's going to win for Bryant. Bryant on the Mole to 5 against Jund with my creature-based combo deck does not feel like a winning position.
So, a mulligan to 5 is one of the situations where Leyline of Sanctity is one of the cards that gets you out of this.
Very true. But notably, I do not see any Leyline of Sanctities here. Just looks like Giver of Ruins, Birds of Paradise, Noble Hierarch, 1 land and a Spell Pierce.
I'm inclined to agree with Wandering Venser. He says the birds have got to go.
Yeah, I tend to agree.
But I don't think that's the reality we're in. In fact, I think that's a Birds of Paradise in Bryant's hand right now.
It certainly is. So the birds have definitely not gone. Update, Birds of Paradise, not a winter migrating bird. It is November. The birds are still here. So that must be a summer migration for the Birds of Paradise, not a winter one.
I think every bird that is a migrating bird is both a summer and a winter migrating bird.
I believe technically. Perhaps it's a spring-fall some migrating bird as opposed to a winter-summer migrating bird. Maybe it's just not a migratory bird.
We could be right in the middle of its path.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
It's not here in the winter or the summer, but it's in transit and it's here in November.
It just stopped at a motel overnight or something like that.
Stopped at a game store.
Saw Paradise Games F&M, decided to swing by, spend the night.
That sounds like a good place to make mana.
Alright. Really, we're just distracting ourselves from the slaughter that's happening on screen. We've got this bird in our hand, and we're just playing it into Wrenn and 6. I mean, I guess.
There aren't any lands in Greg's graveyard, which is the only reason I don't like that play.
I tend to agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, here we are. I mean, you could just play nothing.
If you were preventing him
fairies.
from generating an advantage, it could be useful.
The bird is a tropical bird. Where would it migrate to? Well, assuming that it was a southern hemisphere tropical bird, it could migrate to the northern hemisphere in the summer and the southern hemisphere in the winter to just maintain its tropical atmosphere.
So that's not really how that works. You just get colder the further you are from the equator. So if you're a tropical bird in the southern hemisphere, you would probably migrate to, let's say, Chile or Argentina.
It's not really a temperature thing. It's more of a moisture thing, which does affect the tilt, which is slightly affected by the tilt of the Earth. So, if you're looking for a particular worm that grows in a moist or that thrives in a moist climate, that could be affected by your migrating path.
I suppose that could be true.
It seems unlikely, but we're simply spitballing here where these birds would go.
If you are looking for somewhere moist, I do suggest a spitball.
yeah.
So there's a Teferi on the battlefield, so he is in the deck. He is minusing to return. I think that was a Tarmogoyf, but I was too busy thinking about spitballs.
It was.
Which cantrips and takes the foot off the accelerator just a little bit.
Yeah.
Because the Tarmogoyf is killing the Teferi and not killing Bryant.
Yep. Notably, only how big are these Tarmogoyfs? 4 power. I think they
just became
land, planeswalker, sorcery instant creature, so 5.
Well, they're just 5 now.
Yeah. So Bryant down to 7. This is a lethal attack. Teferi number 2 will be able to return the other Tarmogoyf by Bryant one more turn, as long as Greg does not have anything to do.
He, in fact, does have things to do.
Yeah, and regardless of this cascade, we can't cast the spell because of Teferi, but it does not matter, and that will do it. A rough mulligan 5 in game number 3 here for Bryant, and I would say a fascinating science lesson on bird habitats and migration from game number 3 for us. So I think all things considered, a win for everyone but Bryant.
And you know what? Even like when he goes back and watches the vid, he's gonna love hearing what we had to say. So I think he's gonna get something out of this too. We do, if you're watching this live, we post all of these on YouTube.
We do.
The account name is Pairodice Games, with O''space Games. And if you're watching this on YouTube, we broadcast live on twitch.tv/Pairodice Games. We do Modern on Mondays. We typically do Standard on Fridays, but right now we're in a Pioneer kick. So we will be doing Pioneer this Friday, and that's in anticipation of a 1K.
December 14th. Make sure to mark your calendars. December 14th is the Pairodice Games Pioneer 1K. It will be live streamed, and if you're in the area, we highly recommend you play it. And, if you can't make it for whatever reason, definitely come check out the stream, because we will be bringing you every round of that event. It should be a nice 6-round tournament, a top 8, the whole 9 yards. So it'll be a full day of Magic that we'll be bringing you, whether you are local and make it out to the shop, or if you cannot. Also, we have our website, http:/// www.paradisegames.com. Pairodice.games. All right,
There's no .com there.
I can't do it as well as you. Go ahead.
I've been doing it for a while.
Yeah, I don't know how you do that.
So we do cap at 48 players for our event, because we're not that big of a store, but we're going to be able to seat 48. If you want to make sure you're one of those players, if you go to Pairodice.games and you click that little Magic Events drop-down menu, one of them will be the Pioneer 1K, and if you follow a link there to our Square store, it'll give you a place to buy a ticket if you want to pre-register. We're not shipping to you, obviously, but it's going to ask for shipping information. If you want to put your DCI number in that address line, that would be so convenient for us.
And I highly recommend you pre-register for this event. Pioneer is hot, and I expect this to sell out. So I think that if you are interested in playing, you should sign up sooner rather than later. People love playing Pioneer, and people want to play it. And I think the interest, even locally, has been so high that I would be pretty surprised if we did not hit that cap. So make sure you sign up earlier rather than later.
Also, we'll be having Stephen Boston as our head judge and Exton Mentler as our floor judge. We need to start a betting pool on which cards are legal that tournament. Right, there will be a banned and restricted announcement on the Monday prior to the Saturday that this event is on.
Yes.
So plan ahead, prepare, but not too far, and be prepared to be flexible.
Yep, absolutely. And potentially we'll look into some fun things for the stream. I'm thinking bingo board seems likely.
Oh yeah, I know you guys have done that before, so I'm hoping you'll make one for us.
Tournament bingo boards are excellent, and I highly recommend them.
If I can toot my horn about our TCG player store.
Please do.
This website right now that we're showing you, if you create a cart from Magic cards, Star Wars, Destiny cards, or Pokemon cards, you can check out through TCG Player, and if you're local, you can select pay later, pick up in store, or if you're not local, we ship. That's why we're on TCG Player. We just hit 25,000 sales in our last 2 years, and we have a 100% positive feedback rating. So if you're worried that we're going to take your money and not send your cards,
+1.
Yeah, let those 25,000 people speak positively for us, and we'll take care of you if we have what you want.
Yeah, we have our entire inventory on our website as well. So if you are curious if we have a card, you can just go ahead and check out the website, and you'll be able to tell pretty easily if we do or not. So anyways, is there anything else? Or with that, I think we'll leave you with a little bit of capacity while we go and find potentially another match for the rest of the round, or we'll be back with our third round. Regardless, make sure you don't go anywhere. We will be back soon. Here's some capacity. Alrighty, welcome back everybody for round number 3 here at Pairodice Games Monday Night Modern. We have Greg versus Nick, Jund versus Burn here, and this is a matchup that I'm gonna go ahead and say I have quite a bit of experience playing. I've played it a lot, mostly from the Jund side, but I've definitely played it a good few times from the Burn side. And my initial thoughts on this matchup, going into it, were that Jund should be quite favored. And it feels like you should win. But the more I played the matchup, the more it felt like I just kept dying to my opponent top decking Lightning Bolt. And it happened like every time. Well, not every time, but it happened very frequently where you just die to Lightning Bolt off the top. And at that point, I sort of kind of reevaluated my stance on the fact that, you know, Jund has a good burn matchup, and I think that Jund can have a good burn matchup, and in fact does if you want to. So I believe that base Jund, if you aren't trying to beat burn, is not really going to beat burn. I think you have draws that will beat burn, but in an average match, I think, assuming that both players are playing well, I think that burn is probably like 52% in this matchup or something like that. Whereas I think that where that kind of changes is if Jund is prepared for burn, I think you can see this matchup go as swingy as 70-30 in Jund's favor, with cards like Weather the Storm and that being present. It's really tough for burn to be able to combat all of those. So we'll see how prepared Greg is for burn in his sideboard, and I think that's going to be sort of the tell of the match. So now that I've got that ramble kind of out of the way, let's catch up with what's been going on so far in this match. So Nick won the die roll, very importantly. Greg took a mulligan down to 6. Nick started off with Wooded Foothills finding a Sacred Foundry Goblin Guide. Goblin Guide revealed a mountain, which Greg drew. Nice unmulligan there. And now we see turn 1 Verdant Catacombs find a Swamp Cast Thoughtseize, taking a look at Nick's hand of Double Swift Spear, Eidolon of the Great Rebel, Lightning Bolt, and Searing Blaze. I expect Eidolon to be getting taken, and it is in fact. So Greg will go down to 13 here, as he does have to take 2 from the Greg will go down to 15 here, taking 2 from the Thoughtseize. And then we'll see Nick untap, rip a land like a champion, and now we'll probably just see Double Swift Spear just get jammed down Greg's throat here. So we'll see if Greg has any answers to this, or if he's just going to kind of get run over and die. You know, on a mulligan to 6, this can definitely happen. This is an attack for 4. Goblin Guide triggers. He'll reveal Fatal Push. That's definitely one that Greg's probably happy to see, but he's going to need answers here to be able to deal with all of the threats that Nick is deploying. And it's rough because if Greg just plays a spell here, he knows about the Searing Blaze that Nick has in hand. So if he draws a land, which Nick did, Searing Blaze is now online. And now Greg could be in a really tough spot. That's going to be 3 damage to Greg, 3 damage to Tarmogoyf. It's going to make a block turn into a trade. We have sorcery land enchantment creature and instant will be put in the graveyard with the Searing Blaze. So that's going to be a 5 power Tarmogoyf, 6 toughness, of course. And that's going to be tough for Nick to get through, but I think he's just going to be happy jamming his creatures into it and just trying to point burn spells upstairs. I believe that Nick has a Searing Blaze and one other card in his hand, and I'm not sure what the other one is. I'm sure I announced it. I think I should know, but I cannot remember. Is it a Lightning Bolt? Oh, it is a Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt is the other card, so pretty relevant. All right, so Searing Blaze there, 3 damage to Tarmogoyf. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry about that. 3 damage to Tarmogoyf, 3 damage to Greg, and yeah, that's just enough to clean up the match. A very good draw on the burn side, and a little bit of a stumble. Turn 1 Thoughtseize, not the start you want from Jund against burn, so we'll have to see how things progress into the post-board games. I think it's very important that Burn pick up the pre-board game, because things will certainly get harder for him in the post-board, but I think the games are more interesting there anyway, with the dynamics of Skullcrack and Weather. So let's take a look at these boards. Over for Greg on Jund, we have 2 Plague Engineer, 1 Alpine Moon, 1 Ashiok Dreamrender, 1 Damping Sphere, 3 Fulminator Mage, 1 Weather the Storm, 2 Collector Roof, 2 Collective Brutality, and a Nissa Vital Force. So, from Greg's side, I think Alpine Moon... No. Weather the Storm is obvious. That one's for sure. Collective Brutality is another slam dunk. And unfortunately, that's where the really good ones stop. I'm a pretty big advocate for bringing in Fulminator Mage against Burn in this matchup when you have other things that are just bad and kind of want to go. I'm looking at mostly Thoughtseize Dark Confidant, which we've seen Greg does have. So if you have more copies of that than your Collective Brutalities and Weather the Storm equal, I actually do enjoy bringing in Fulminator Mage, because sometimes you can take them off white or destroy a Horizon Canopy land, and that allows... that somewhat allows you to fight on that access, and it doesn't come up often, but I think it's better than bringing in like Collector Roof, which is just a 2-mana 2/2. Meanwhile, on Nick's side, over on Burn, we have 3 Core Firewalker, 3 Path to Exile, 1 Searing Blood, 4 Skullcrack, and 4 Smash to Smithereens. This, I think, Skullcracks, you always bring in your 4 Skullcracks in a post-board game, pretty much, especially against Jund. You know they're going to be bringing in Weather the Storm, that type of thing. Other than that, I think I'm leaving the rest in the board. I've talked to a lot of people about whether or not you're supposed to bring in Path to Exile and Deflecting Palm, things like that against Jund. And I always land on... I tend to land on side, I don't think you want Path to Exile or like Deflecting Palm. But I've talked to a lot of people who disagree with me. A lot of people think that they're good because you have to be able to get through Tarmogoyf. So I won't fault Nick for bringing those in. I just personally don't. And with that, Brad is back. Welcome back.
Hey!
So we saw a very fast game 1. Nick off to a blazing start on the playing game 1. Took out Greg basically on turn 3.
Yeah, so to add to the you have to get through Tarmogoyfs, it's my position that you do not have to get through Tarmogoyfs. The card doesn't have Vigilance, and when Greg deploys a Tarmogoyf, he needs to use it to kill Nick. Definitely. So a lot of times the way you get through the Tarmogoyf is the Tarmogoyf has to turn sideways.
Yeah.
If it's sitting back there to hold back your Monastery Swiftspear and buys you turns to draw into more burn spells...
Feels fine.
Yeah, you don't want to draw into Path to Exiles, you want to draw into burn spells.
Yeah. So it's no secret that Tarmogoyf is the best card for Greg in this matchup, outside of, the haymakers like Weather the Storm, Collective Brutality, obviously.
Remember when you used to play Bow of Nylea?
Yeah. But, Tarmogoyf is definitely Greg's best plan, and you really want to see it early. If it gets lightning bolted, that sucks, but whatever. All right, regardless, enough theory here as we have actual gameplay in front of us. Both players keep their opening 7. Greg on Blackleaf Cliffs Inquisition. We see Sunbake Canyon, Inspiring Vantage, Monastery Swiftspear, Boros Charm, Lava Spike, Skullcrack, and Riftbolt over on the side of Nick. I think that there's a couple standouts to me. Monastery Swiftspear, if we don't have a removal spell, seems like the one, and potentially Skullcrack is the most problematic card here for Greg as well. If Greg has, a card like Weather the Storm in his hand, he's probably just going to want to get that thing out of there and fire it off on turn 2 or 3. But it looks like Greg will elect to take the Monastery Swiftspear. I think he has an Assassin's Trophy in his hand, but he sounds like he doesn't really want to play that game with an Assassin's Trophy, which I can't say I horribly fault him for. He's also got Scavenging Ooze in his hand, and, Skullcrack is not going to be the most profitable exchange against Scavenging Ooze, really. It's fine, but not the best.
There's a lightning bolt off the top, which really punishes us for taking the Monastery Swiftspear.
Definitely.
Something you want to do is take the card that your hand doesn't otherwise interact with. And so that stack of burn spells, you can't interact with that. You can Weather the Storm, but your opponent has a Skullcrack. But a lot of times you really want to leave the things that your removal can answer to your removal and take the rest on the jaw and hope that your life total holds up. Although Nick drew into another thing that dies to that lightning bolt.
Yes, Eidolon of the Great Revel. Traditionally quite good in this matchup. It almost always just gets lightning bolted or fatal pushed, but then your opponent takes 2 damage when that happens, and you're reasonably happy on the burn side every time that happens, because it usually eats a turn because they feel like they have to kill it. It's oftentimes a good tempo play. If you play it on like turn 2 going into Jund's turn 3, they'll often feel like they can't they basically can't play like Liliana of the Veil because they don't want to take 2 and have you sacrifice a Monastery Swiftspear or whatever and then have the Lily die and then have to take 2 again. So that's a common play. And here we see, I mentioned this a little bit in the sideboarding, Collector Oof. out of the sideboard from Greg. This is here because it is a 2-mana 2/2.
Yep. It blocks Goblin Guide.
Yep. And this is the situation where I have multiple times, and I've talked with Greg about this frequently. I always, I'm missing the word. I always try to advocate's the word, for Fulminator Mage instead of Collector Roof in this spot. The just random 2/2 spot, I think that Fulminator Mage has enough upside just by being able to destroy white lands. Oftentimes Burn will end up with a single white source. It's really good there. And if you could just
with Nick with 4 white
yeah,
sources.
and obviously it wouldn't have been good in this game, but also Greg tapped, I believe, 3 mana, or spent 2 mana on a turn where he had 3 mana anyway for it, so it's not like it would have mattered. And if Nick ever would have tapped out of this Sunbaked Canyon, then you could potentially, snipe that down, and that's just a big deal a lot of the time.
But I feel like we've got Tireless Trackers, we've got Blood Red Elves, we've got Liliana of the Veils. We have plenty of cards that are going to give us that upside if we just have time to go find them. And so I really do prefer the 2-mana spell. Although, given my hand of multiple Blood Red Elves, I don't love attacking with it. Because half the things that it's here to block have haste. And here we are taking 2 damage to a Goblin Guide with a tapped Collector Roof.
Yeah, most certainly. So, I'm going to go ahead and resolve that trigger. It is a mountain, so that helps a little bit. We're pretty happy about that. And I assume we're just going to be Assassin's Trophying this Goblin Guide. I'm not about taking 2 here. We're at 7.
Yeah, and even if we didn't want to trophy the Swiftspear on turn 1, it's not like we're saving the trophies for Coughs or Chandra Torch Defiance. They're here to kill 1-mana spells, just not on turn 1, because we don't want to give Nick that much velocity.
Greg is really thinking about it. He just goes ahead and takes the 2.
Then why is Trophy in our deck?
I'm not sure. What is Greg's plan here? He took a Lava Spike. We're down to 1 now.
So the plan is going to be to play Scavenging Ooze. We're going to gain life up to 3, but we're going to die to a spell. We still need... Yeah, it's really awkward. Because now, if we cast Assassin's Trophy, what if Nick's last card in hand is just Lightning Bolt? Now we're just dead. Yeah, the only way
we're going to tap out and then we're going to die.
So, Blood Red Elf into Weather the Storm becomes our only line here?
Yeah. And I guess this would have been true regardless of the taking 2, right? Like, if Greg goes and finds, if Greg had done that during combat, we would have been in trouble regardless. But here we see also another interesting choice. I'm very perplexed as to what just happened here.
I think Greg was thinking... Maybe he won't have a burn spell. Maybe I can buy another turn.
Greg
and then
knew
we're
that Nick's last card was
there's a
Skullcrack. Greg knew that Nick's last card was Skullcrack. Yeah.
So we could have been playing around a blank and then realized that reality didn't exist, which leaves you as your only spot being Blood Red Elf into Weather the Storm.
Yeah, and if we had not taken 2 from the Goblin Guide there, we could have just untapped and played Scavenging Ooze and then gone to 4.
And this said my Verdant Catacombs doesn't exist, or maybe I'll get it later.
Yeah, whatever, but we could have gone to 4.
Right. Yeah.
That's significantly more than 3 when we know our opponent has a 3 damage burn spell in their hand. So I'm a little confused by the no Assassin's Trophy there on that Goblin Guide. It seems somewhat counterintuitive. I'm curious what was going through Greg's head when he decided to just take the 2 there, especially at 7 against burn. I mean, it's I've said it already, but it's so counterintuitive.
And this all could have related to that Collector Oof attack. Like, he makes the attack thinking, I'm only punished if he draws a Goblin Guide. And then he draws a Goblin Guide, and you're like, oh, I'm punished. So now you're like, well, my Oof is here to answer it. I don't want to Assassin's Trophy it, so you let it through. And you immediately realize... I probably shouldn't have let it through, but I still am going to need the mana.
Yeah.
So then you don't fall for your whole sunk
awkward
cost fallacy. You cast your Assassin's Trophy.
But just too late. Yeah. And, looks like that is that. Quick 2 games for Burn. We've seen a couple quick Burn matches here in feature match. Burn living up to its name. Sometimes you get a few longer games with the deck where things kind of grind out and you look for that last top decked Burn spell. But Nick managed to find himself in that position neither game. He just had the gas every time. No sweats for Greg. Just had it. So with that, we are going to thank our second sponsor for the night, Tabletop. Tabletop is a board game apparel clothing brand, and they are the best at what they do. If you like board games, if you like tabletop RPGs, anything like that, you are going to love Tabletop. Everybody likes to have awesome things that they care about on their clothes, and Tabletop allows you to do that. They have awesome selection, awesome quality merchandise, and Tabletop, I think, is going to serve anybody who enjoys board games well. And thank you so much to Tabletop for supporting the stream. Without you guys, we would not be able to be here doing what we do. With that, we're going to find you another match, hopefully very quickly, for this third round. So we're going to leave you with some Hot Damn Scandal, and we will be right back.
I like to swim at the bottom of the barrel. I like to sleep in hidey holes and barroom stalls. I like to hear the piano playing in the bloody little dawn. I like to wake up with the devil and drink him till he's gone. The queen is drunk and someone armed the pawns. Oh, the truth they say is an acquired taste, a vice I've never thought to own. There is no clean air left, so we filter it through cigarettes. For the gambler's mercy keeps us blind and vain. burn it down, let's 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 burn it down. I've been relying on my bruises, defined my edges against skies of gray, but now my worries are how far away. The sky is clear, and I begin to fade. Once I believed in paradise, a place where I would never feel no pain, a state of mind I'd never have to change. But now it all looks alright, and I begin to fade. Trouble, I need you. I don't know what I am, but I ain't nothing without these blues. I've heard a million happy endings. I've seen the good guys win, I've seen the bad guys pay, but now I never read that final page, 'cause in that sunset ride, yeah, I begin to fade. Trouble, I need you. I don't know what I am, but I ain't nothing without these blues. There's heaven for the hopeless, a place where we can all still wax and wane, a place where cloudy skies can still bring rain. So in my shaking faith, I clasp my hands and pray. I pray for trouble. I need you. I don't know what I am, but I ain't nothing without this trouble. Trouble, I need you. I don't know what I am, but I ain't nothing without these blues.
Alrighty, welcome back for our third and final round of the night. We've got game number 3 between Blue-White Control and Blue Moon. So, makes some amount of sense that this is the game we get to have on camera here at the end. So, let's see what we got. It looks like Blue-White Control is splashing Bant for Oko. Thief of Crowns? What? How do you
right.
sound? How do you like that?
There's some number of creatures that Supreme Verdict does not interact with cleanly, and if you turn that creature into an elk, I suspect that Supreme Verdict interacts with it cleanly.
Sounds about right to me. Although I must admit, Thrun is not one of them.
Was there a Thrun here somewhere?
Well,
or you're
no,
just naming
but just
in theory?
in theory.
That's fair.
I'm always looking for ways to beat Thrun, and so far I got nothing.
If you can't beat them, join them.
Yeah.
I think every tournament that I've ever got a win worth bragging about, I had Thrun in my deck. So
Sounds sick. All right, so looks like we joined in after Brendan had taken a mulligan to 6. He put a card on bottom, and then I believe Nathan on the play here. So we've got him going ahead, cracking a fetch land. Go ahead and find an island. We'll see what he wants to do with his mana. Thing in the ice seems likely. Young Pyromancer, another plausible.
we saw Nathan in round 2, I think it was, or maybe it was round 1.
Yes, it was round 2, I believe.
And we saw Bloodwater Entity.
Yes.
As additional Mystic Sanctuaries. And he said, I talked to him after the match, and he's like, I wanted to show you guys the spicy thing in my deck. And I'm like, we saw the Bloodwater Entity. He's like, oh, right, not that. There's another way for me to rebuy Mystic Sanctuary, and it's not Deprive.
Do we know what it is?
No, he didn't tell me.
Well, now we've just got to sit here and spitball. Like, what could it be?
I don't want to spitball. I want to see it happen.
Yeah. All right. Well, here we see an fetch land coming out from Brendan, and I think I see Prismatic Vista in his hand along with some other stuff. This looks like not a particularly traditional blue-white control deck. I must have been mistaken, though I did think I saw a Teferi in his hand, and I think it was the 5-mana version. So that kind of was where my initial blue-white control senses came from. And I know Brendan has played a lot of blue-white control in the past, so I sort of just assumed we were closer to our traditional roots. But with Arkham's Astrolabe, Oko, bunch of snowlands, and all that, seems like we might be a little further away from that than I'd initially guessed.
Yeah, so I assume we're going to have Ice Fang Quaddle in here. A card that I really desperately want people to play in this format, so I'll bug Brendan about it later, is Kazali Ambusher. You get cool tools when you start playing Bant. The Quaddle is probably the one we're actually going to see. Quaddle being flashed in, and then Oko coming and elking it is a decent interaction.
Quite good, I would argue. And here we see, I believe this was Nathan missing his land drop and then sending the turn back over to Brendan. That's pretty bad for Nathan, excuse me. Missing your land drops in these like control-esque mirrors is definitely a problem.
But Nathan has a Mystical Dispute in his hand. If he also has like a Spell Snare and perhaps a Remand, then he could find himself in a situation where he's able to flip the thing in the ice and then just protect it long enough that it kills Brendan.
Yeah, I mean, Brendan's at 15 and probably going to 14 from his Flooded Strand, right? So we'll see what's going on here. So here is Oko, Thief of Crowns from Brendan. We could turn our Astrolabe into a 3/3. That seems sick. I'm into that. Regardless,
when I crown our elf cantrip.
Yeah, a nice cantripping elk. So here is that Mystical Dispute we talked about. Brendan will go to 14, fetch out an island. We'll see what he wants to do. Looks like he will respond with Veil of Summer. And, man, what is that? Is that Spells Pierce?
Oh, man.
I believe it's Spell Pierce.
Invocation Spell Pierce?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And,
Pierce.
Yeah, that's a pretty favorable interaction there for Nathan. Obviously, it's pretty hard to win these counter wars when you're stuck on 2 mana, and here we see the downside of Mystic Sanctuary, unfortunately, as it does enter the battlefield tapped for Nathan. I'm not certain he was really looking for that 5th or that 3rd untapped land anyway, as this turn he'll go ahead and send the turn back anyways. Now players just go ahead and making their land drops. Obviously, this is going to favor Brendan as he has the land drops to make, and it appears that Nathan still kind of missing some. So end of turn, looks like Lightning Bolt U trigger. We'll see if anybody anything matters. And looks like Brendan will go ahead and respond with Path to Exile to go ahead and take out the Thing in the Ice. And I bet Nathan's reasonably happy about that. I mean, that's going to get us a land.
So Nathan has the Archmage's Charm in his hand, and he was going to, end of turn, Archmage's Charm, draw 2 cards in order to flip his Thing in the Ice, but he decided to only spend the 1 mana on Lightning Bolt to your face instead, with the intention of untapping and using the Archmage's Charm to protect a Thing in the Ice long enough to win the game.
Definitely, and we'll see that kind of flare up in his face, I think. Obviously, Lightning Bolt targeting you significantly less good than draw 2 cards, but potentially we would have seen Brendan fight over, the instant speed divination, whereas at this time, obviously 3 mana, 3 damage when we're at 14, you can just go ahead and take that on the chin, I think.
And now the Path to Exile when we're on 3 lands doesn't feel terrible. Here's Bloodwater Entity, which is going to get back
baby, that's a reader. That's Brendan clearly didn't play enough Hour of Devastation Limited. What are you doing? Oh, man. Put Lightning Bolt back on top. Now we're on the aggro plan.
And we've got a Prowess threat and a Lightning Bolt.
Counter draw or not, says Nathan with the Mystical Dispute. Bloodwater Entity puts the Lightning Bolt back on top. Mystical Dispute is nasty.
Nathan's here needing one more thing in order to kill Brendan. He's going to have a 6 damage turn next turn with an Archmage's Charm.
Yep. Well, it'll be 7 damage turn next turn.
I'm kind of...
With an Archmage's Charm and a Lightning Bolt.
Turns out the Bloodwater Entity is getting exiled, but I was presuming that the Archmage's Charm wasn't going to give us a Prowess trigger that turn.
Yeah, pretty reasonable. So we've got Path to Exile, taking out the Bloodwater Entity. Nathan, I think, correctly electing to go ahead and find the basic land, shuffle away Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt looks far from excellent here.
Now that the Bloodwater Entity is dead?
Yeah, now that the Bloodwater Entity's gone. So pretty reasonable place on top of the deck there from Nathan, actually. So in this situation, right, assuming that your opponent's going to have Path to Exile as their removal spell of choice, if your Bloodwater Entity is dying, then you get to shuffle away your Lightning Bolt, and if it isn't, then you're going to want the Lightning Bolt. So potentially we could have seen Brendan play his Path to Exile at a slightly better time, but that would have allowed Nathan to untap and have more mana available. But a nice, draw step Path to Exile looked pretty good there to me if I'm Brendan, especially given that we have this force and this Snapcaster Mage to help protect that resolving.
Here's a Vendilion Click. I was thinking we're going to have this force for whatever next proactive play Nathan makes, but Force of Negation does not answer Vendilion Click.
It does not. We'll see if Brendan wants to fire off a Snapcaster Mage in response. Snapcaster Cryptic seems pretty likely. We'll see if that's something that he wants to go for. Looks like Snapcaster Mage is step 1 of the plan. Let's see if step 2 is Cryptic Command.
It looks like it's Veil of Summer?
Snapcaster Veil? I mean, I don't hate that, but it allows us to play around, Mystical Dispute a little better. But we've already seen 2 out of our opponent. Our opponent only has 2 mana, so it's not like Snap Mystical Dispute's really online.
Is it Charm? It's not quite as popular in Modern as it is in Pioneer, but it's another card that could be here. We've also already seen the Spell Pierce, I believe.
It also notably gives our opponent access to the 3/1 flyer, which we probably care about a little bit. And granted, depending on when this happens, it gets a little awkward. So looks like here was the sequencing. Brendan, in response to the Vendilion Click, cast Snapcaster Mage. Targeted the Veil of Summer. Nathan then elected to still target Brendan with Vendilion Click. He did not target himself, which means he probably has 2 cards in hand he doesn't want to cycle, and then Brendan goes ahead and casts that nice little goes ahead and casts that Veil of Summer that he had. Here we see so we've got Nathan's turn, attack for 3. Brendan casts Icefang Coatl. He's going to try and block and trade. Nathan will attempt to Cryptic Command it, and then Brendan fires off Force of Negation, exiling Jace in order to counter it. So Brendan does get that trade through. Here's an attack for 2 from Snapcaster Mage. I'm going to see these life totals start to even out, and then back over to Nathan. Nathan has far more cards than Brendan, but Brendan, currently the one with the Snapcaster Mage in play. Oh, Force of Negation here. on the Jace the Mind Sculptor. Nathan does not have the mana to be able to deal with that. He's stuck with double Archmage's Charm in hand, a powerful engine, and Snapcaster Mage not the fastest clock, so I tend to believe that Nathan's going to have the time to deploy it.
So it's now looking like that turn where we used Lightning Bolt to flip our thing in the ice rather than the Archmage's Charm, we're rather punished for. If Brendan had fought over the Archmage's Charm, then one of our other relevant plays this game would have resolved.
Absolutely.
We could be here with a Jace in play instead of a Charm in hand.
Uh-oh. Mystic Sanctuary off the top for Brendan puts Cryptic Command on top of his deck. Now we'll see what Brendan wants to do. He definitely needs to start doing something. Looks like end step Archmage's Charm. Gonna try and draw 2 cards. And 1 and 2 Spell Pierce and a Prismatic Vista.
There are so many invocations in Nathan's deck that when I see one, I assume it's Cryptic Command because that's the one I've been seeing the most of. I think the Spell Pierces are in the sideboard.
They are, yeah.
But they just look bold. I have no idea what these cards say.
I actually have a particular distaste of all of these invocations and expeditions and all that because they're impossible to see on camera. But I believe I'm approaching the point where I've seen all of them enough that I am beginning to be able to recognize them and tell them apart from one another. But let me tell you, it is not easy. It is not easy. All right, so here's an attack for 2.
Brings us all to 11.
Cryptic Command, Snapcaster Mage. The card's in hand for Brendan. I'm gonna go ahead and ask you here, Brad. If you had to pick 2 cards to be in your hand right now, what would they be?
Cryptic Command and Kazali Ambusher.
Snapcaster Mage.
Snapcaster
yeah,
Mage.
that's one. Yeah, I tend to agree. So I think Brendan kind of feeling pretty comfortable with his spot, although Young Pyromancer definitely a relevant threat here. And it looks like the Snapcaster Mage just attacked for 2, and Nathan just said okay. He has the Young Pyromancer and the Archmage's Charm, so he could have tried to make a token, and perhaps we're still in combat currently, but I'm not exactly certain about that.
He does know about the Cryptic Command. It was put on top of the library.
Yes, he does. So, but even if the spell gets countered, you'll still get to see the 1/1 token made in case he tried to, in case he tried to block. So let's see what happens here. It looks like Nathan just went ahead and untapped, attacked for 2, and then sent it back. Surprisingly little course of action here from Nathan. Looks like Nathan very familiar with this Cryptic Command lock, quote unquote. So he's kind of doing his best to play around that. He's holding up his Archmage's Charms to be able to potentially Divination and then also, cast a counterspell. So here we see Snapcaster, Path to Exile. The modes here.
There's a remand in Nathan's hand. So really, what you want to do here is cast your Archmage's Charm, get it Cryptic Commanded, and then remand your Archmage's Charm.
That sounds quite good to me. Although, perhaps... oh boy, here we go.
So first, let's put a Mystical Dispute on top of our library so that remand finds us Mystical Dispute while we do this whole mess.
I think this sounds quite good to me. So, we've got Misty Rainforest finding...
Lightning Bolt?
Lightning Bolt?
But I feel like
I don't
we
know
can
about
take
that.
over this game with this Pyromancer.
I tend to agree. Here's Remand targeting Path to Exile. Trigger.
Is there only one blue source on the battlefield?
No, there's plenty. Here's Cryptic Command.
Because there's
targeting
Astrolabes.
Remand. And presumably returning his own Mystic Sanctuary. Here's Spell Pierce. Spell Pierce counters Cryptic Command, trigger. Remand will counter the Path to Exile. Nathan will draw the Lightning Bolt off the top of his deck.
And now I think we still have this Young Pyromancer bashing into the Snapcaster Mage, which is not exactly what Nathan wants.
Yeah, but now he has the Lightning Bolt, so he can Lightning Bolt the untapped Snapcaster Mage right now,
which would
for
enable
damage.
him to make a third elemental as well.
Yeah. Oh, but it looks like...
We didn't block? There must have been an end-of-turn Snapcaster Mage. Brendan must already be at 9.
Yeah, or maybe Brendan just is trying to beat or something? I'm not certain.
He's not beating with 2/2/1s through 2/1/1s.
All right, so Brendan drew Mystic Sanctuary. Mystic Sanctuary put Cryptic Command back on top of Brendan's deck. Here we see end step Lightning Bolt, Archmage's Charm as Divination for Nathan.
And this is all during Brendan's upkeep. Oh,
This
no,
was
it was
this
during
was Brendan's
end
end step, correct. And now...
All right, Brendan didn't draw the Cryptic Command.
No, because
the
it got
previous
countered,
Cryptic Command
yes.
didn't resolve.
But he did draw Mystic Sanctuary, which then put another Cryptic Command on top of his deck.
But Nathan's here with 5 creatures.
Yes, and that is approaching lethal quickly. Thing in the Ice, definitely going to be a threat that matters at some point. Here's an attack with, I believe that's 5 tokens?
I think it's 4.
It's definitely one of those two. We'll have to see the updated life total to be able to get an update. Looks like it is, in fact, only 4 tokens. You are correct. So, looks like this is back to Nathan's main phase. I think that was Draco from Brendan.
And then here's a Serum
and it's
Visions.
Cryptic Command, and both players know that. So here's Serum Visions. Serum Visions resolves.
Is Remand Spell Pierce on top?
I don't think that's Spell Pierce.
Ugh.
I actually don't know what that one is.
I hope it's not Threads of Disloyalty.
It's
the Scarab God. What other invocation could it be? Entomb.
It's got to be a blue counterspell of some sort. Perhaps...
It could be Blood Moon. Oh, no, it's
not
what
Blood Moon. It's not like. Blood Moon, yeah.
Blood Moon's not big and green?
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
I'm not sure what one that is, so if he draws it, we'll have to get confirmation from our floor judge what that is. Okay, well, now it's in play.
Well, whatever it is, Brendan's going to read it. Maybe he'll read it to us.
Kefnet?
Oh, I
the
heard
Mindful?
about this. So here's what Kefnet does. This is the other way to recur your Mystic Sanctuary over and over. Because it returns a land your hand and draws you a card.
Holy crap.
And so it lets you continue hitting land drops. That's not true. But it lets you continue finding cards and finding action.
Yeah, it definitely
eventually
draws
it becomes
cards.
a 5/5.
Wow, it is unbelievable how much this Mystic Sanctuary has just warped these control decks lately. I mean, they're so centered around these like loops with absurdly powerful cards that we see Kefnet on the battlefield. Kefnet the Mindful, by the way, for those who don't know, is a 3-mana 5/5 with flying and indestructible. It can't attack or block unless you have 7 or more cards in your hand. And for 4 mana, you can draw a card, then you may return a land you control to its owner's hand. So obviously, Nathan, a long ways off the 7 cards in hand stipulation here. So it's probably just going to be like a 4-mana Howling Mine for quite a while.
So, the other thing that Kefnet does, not in this deck, not in this situation, but it interacts very favorably with a card that I know you're a big fan of. So if Kefnet starts seeing play because of what it does with Mystic Sanctuary, we might start seeing more Periphery Nodes.
Ooh,
because
yeah.
Kefnet is a 5-power creature that never dies to Periphery Nodes.
Oh yeah, that sounds nice.
It sounds like a great way for us to waste our next couple Modern tournaments.
That actually sounds sick. Holy, I'm so into this. All right. I'll need to think about that one later, but you're right. I am very into Periphery Nodes out of Blue Eye Control. I think it's a very, very potent sideboard card. Anyways, here we see Jace the Mind Sculptor, Brainstorm.
Yeah, we were excited about a bird.
Yeah.
Here's the Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Here's Jace. This is, I believe, kind of a last-ditch effort Brainstorm here from Brendan. He needs something very good to not die on the next turn to Young Pyromancer plus all of the tokens. So we'll see. I see Snapcaster Mage among them, but I'm worried about Brendan's access to mana. I think he might have Snapcaster Cryptic Command as the 2 cards in his hand, which we mentioned earlier are 2 real good ones. But if Nathan has any interaction here, I think Brendan's just dead. So we'll see how this ends up going. I believe we're going to go to... it looks like this is just a main phase Kefnet activation. So draw a card, pick up my Mystic Sanctuary.
Yeah, we said we're not close to having 7 cards in hand, but we're in fact very close to having 7 cards in hand. Because Kefnet's activation puts 2 cards in your hand.
All right, Lightning Bolt back on top of the deck for Nathan. We've seen that play a lot this game. Pretty interesting take on the blue-white. Well, basically on the control mirror. I mean, he's valuing Lightning Bolts at face over, the interactive spells, which is definitely strange, I would say.
Yeah, Nathan plays this deck like it's a Delver deck.
Yeah, he really does.
He doesn't have that awful 1-mana 1/1 in it, but other than that.
Here is Dispel Your Remand. So I was incorrect about the Cryptic Command there. So it looks like this is going to be... oh, here's another Remand. And then that will do it. Whew. Crazy stack, but we do see Nathan end up taking the match over Brendan. That was sweet.
Yeah, watching Nathan pilot this deck when he's in his element is it's a thing of beauty. He takes lines that I don't understand, but he wins a lot of games, and he really knows how to pilot.
Yeah,
this
he's
monstrosity.
played a lot of Blue Moon, so he definitely takes some unconventional lines, and he often, it's one of those things where there's a lot of times where you see a weird line, and it's easy for you to just write it off as, oh, that player's bad. Right, and it's the players that are good, that take the interesting lines, or have the interesting opinions that really make you stop and think like, well, I know you're not bad, so why do you think that? And those are really the conversations that I really like having with people. I've met a good few people in my day that just have strange opinions about Magic, and sometimes they just they're newer to the game, they aren't as experienced, their opinions don't have as much depth to them as the general community opinions do, and so it's easy to kind of write those off. But when you see a good player with strange opinions, it's often very interesting to know why they have those opinions, and I really enjoy talking to people about how they got to the lines they did, what experiences they have that I don't have that led them to believe these things. And I think Brendan definitely falls in that camp. Nathan. He's played this Blue Moon deck so much that, if I were to play a Blue Moon tournament tomorrow, I would definitely walk up to Nathan and ask him for a sideboard guide or whatever, and like what's my game plan, because I would have never targeted Lightning Bolt with Mystic Sanctuary in most of those
Lightning
stances.
Bolt would be in my deck in game 2 and 3.
Maybe not. Maybe you just need the pressure. Maybe you need ways to deal with Teferi.
Maybe you need a way to deal with Elk.
Maybe you need ways to deal with Elk. Lightning Bolt's definitely a card that in the control mirrors I tend to keep a few in, but they are certainly some of the first ones to go. So it's interesting. Yeah, it's super interesting. I'm definitely planning on talking to Nathan about this type of matchup here pretty soon and get some takes on his opinion on Lightning Bolt and what his role is in this matchup, because it doesn't feel to me like Nathan feels like the control deck.
Yeah, ask this guy, what's your deck list and how do we put periphery nodes in it?
that too. All right. Anyways, with that, I would like to go ahead and thank our third and final sponsor for tonight, Die Hard Dice. Die Hard Dice is the best in tabletop dice equipment. If you like tabletop RPGs, any type of tabletop game that uses dice, Die Hard Dice is the best dice in the business. They're excellent metal dice. They're heavy. They feel great to roll, and they're just super cool. They look great. Everybody likes, swagging out the things that you like doing. We talk about, these super cool, foreign foil magic cards or whatever, and the Die Hard dice are the best way. They are the Japanese foils of the dice community. They're the coolest. They look the best, and if you enjoy the things you do and you want to show that off to the people you're around with, Die Hard Dice is the way to do it, and we carry them in store. So if you're in the Bellingham area, you can stop by, pick up a set of Die Hard Dice here at Pairodice Games, but if not, go ahead and head to www.dieharddice.com and they will ship them to you as well. So I think that other than that, I believe that was the last round for the night. So we are going to go ahead and cut the stream here. If you watched the stream live but you missed anything, go ahead and check out the YouTube channel, youtube.com/PairodiceGames, for all of the VODs.
That's actually not the YouTube channel.
Oh,
you have to look up the channel name, which is Pairodice Games, pair space O apostrophe space dice space games. But we're renaming all of our videos starting with PodVod.
Excellent.
PodVod, so that should make it easier to find.
Yeah. So that should be easy to find. So anyway, if you're watching live, go ahead and check out that if you missed anything. And if you are watching on YouTube, be sure to come check us out live. We are live Mondays and Fridays at roughly 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. So we will be bringing you live Magic every Monday, Friday for the foreseeable future, as well as upcoming 1Ks. We're trying to get in the swing of that.
Except not the day after Thanksgiving. That's a Friday. We will not be bringing you live content that day. Spend time with your family.
Pretty reasonable. Yeah, I think, everybody needs a nice holiday break. So with that, I will see you guys on Friday for some Pioneer.
Woo!
And everybody have a nice night. Thank you so much, Brad, for joining me in the booth tonight.
Yeah,
See you guys next time.
Here's some hot damn scandal.